point.
Merry Christmas, everyone! One and all. Welcome to TEDXMAS, the show where we do TEDx's on Christmas. And I'm coming to you live from the North Pole of the Moon, on the moon! With Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to the special TEDXMAS special. It's so special, I said it twice. I come to you from my backup computer setup because, of course, on Christmas Day, what did the Grinch bring me but computer problems? And I've spent the entire morning transferring my entire system and setup over to a backup computer so that I could still have the opportunity to join you for this special day. And here we are. So if there are any technical issues that go forward, if I have any sound issues, I please hope I don't have sound issues. If I have any video issues, I please hope I don't have videos. That's probably why. And so I apologize ahead of time, but we're going to do our best to get through some TEDx magnificence. And before I get there, let me say hello to those of you who have decided to join me on this most merry TEDxMas's. John Miller, Merry Christmas. Old Guy Gamer, Merry Christmas to you. Zed the Snarky, Merry Christmas. Rotten Corpse, Merry Christmas. Who else is here? Fun Time Bats, Merry Christmas. Spoonie the Rebel, Merry Christmas. Advocatus Diaboli, Merry Christmas to you. Resolute Germ, Merry Christmas. Mike R, Merry Christmas. Mike Savage, Blargmas to you. Tall Person, Merry Christmas to you. Kiro Soldier, Merry Christmas. Tyr Alexander, the Gentleman Leech, Merry Christmas. Michael Sander, Merry Christmas. Liesel 7, Merry Christmas to you. Random American, Merry Christmas. Alan Thyler, again, Alan, holy cow, that is so nice of you. Merry Christmas, very generous, with the #1 samurai, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
And there's a Weibo Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Christmas so far. And I hope I can make it a little better, if it's not already bad. I don't know. What am I saying? Vader 35, Merry Christmas. Ercole Di Stefano, Merry Christmas. And to anyone I missed, anybody who is lurking, anybody in the future, Merry Christmas. All right. So on this TEDxmas, I have some specials for you. We have three different TEDx talks covering completely different subject matter, as far as I know, at least. I have been surprised before by titles throwing me off. So we'll find out as we go. Oh, a couple more first. Timothy Seelbeck, Merry Christmas. Emperor W.R. Costin, Merry Christmas. Big Dave 1066, Merry Christmas. Holy cow, Keeverdam, thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Wow. Thank you, Keeverdam. And again, Merry Christmas to Keeverdam. And just because I can.
Wowie, wow, wow.
There's a Keeverdam, Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Keeverdam. Very, very generous of you. Speaking of generosity, at the top of the chat box, I know this is a bit change of form, but I have put up the charity that I donated to on behalf of my mother this year. My mother's still alive. Don't worry, Mama Scribe is still around. But she asked that my sister and I donate to charities on her behalf that would do good in the world. And so this year I chose Doctors Without Borders. And so on her behalf, at the top of the chat box, there is a link there to donate to Doctors Without Borders. So if you are able to, please consider donating there. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can, share that out on social media. If you are inclined to do so, I'd appreciate that as well. Either way, thank you guys so much ahead of time for your generosity, either to myself or to the charity up there or the charity of your choice. Datura Jones, Merry Christmas to you. And I think that's everyone. If I missed anyone, oh, there we go. Zero the Hero 909, Merry Christmas. All right, so first and foremost, we have a TEDx that I had intended to do at one point as a regular TEDXcellence, but it kept being pushed off by other things coming up and other TEDx streams showing up that it was one day where I couldn't decide between the two. And so I set this one aside. I even made a thumbnail for it. That's how close I was to doing it. Would you like to see the thumbnail? Well, I'll show you the thumbnail now. There it is. Hefty inclusion. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, that's because the title of the presentation is Trash Bags and Transformation, Crafting Inclusive Community Justice. What does that mean? I don't know. We're going to find out together. So with that, granted that I have everything set up correctly, and fingers crossed that I do, I'm going to start out with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed, and hopefully the stream will go off without a hitch, right? Knock Formica. But with that, let's begin. This one is 16 minutes long. By the way, I'm going to go for, well, as long as the TEDx's take. I envision this might go on for at least 3 hours. It's possible. We'll see. So for those of you that hang in the entire time, you are true warriors of the TEDXcellence universe. If you have to drop out for family stuff or Christmas stuff, I completely understand, and I look forward to having you watch the rest in your due time. But with that, those of you that have nothing else or are otherwise alone on a Christmas, well, let's proceed with some insanity.
So I have a secret.
He's got a secret. Do you guys hear that he has a secret? Let me take a drink here to get myself ready for this. Oh, Pepper Jack. On a day like this, you my only friend, except for all the friends in the audience. Buddy R, Merry Christmas. Let's see. And let me put that there. Okay. Sounds good. He's got a secret. Everybody says it sounds good. All right. He's got a secret.
I have a secret I want to share with you that not many people know.
Mm-hmm.
It's my love language.
Okay. Is it French or Italian?
It's not quality time. It's not acts of service.
You
ready?
I'm ready.
Boston cream donuts.
Okay. Oh, you know what I forgot? You're right. I absolutely forgot the bingo card. I apologize. I've been setting everything up and running around trying to get everything squared away this morning that I didn't actually pick a bingo card. Let's do that now, shall we? Here, I'm going to put, how about this? I'm going to start a poll. Yes, I'm going to start a poll. We're going to go A, B, or C. And we'll give it a few minutes in the chat. You guys decide which bingo card are we doing, A, B, or C. And then I'll pull it out of where I thankfully remembered to carry over those files from the other computer before it had its breakdown. So I should have those files here somewhere. I will find them presently when the time comes, and we'll pick our bingo card, and then we'll review it together. But let's go for a couple of minutes and see what we come up with.
I absolutely love them.
Okay.
They're the best.
All right. You really love your Boston cream donuts. Your physique does not express that love so much, which is probably a good thing.
You know, it's not really about the donut,
Mm-hmm.
but it's how I got the donut.
Through legitimate means?
So let me share with you a little story.
Uh-huh.
This is me and my sister.
Okay.
If you can't tell, I'm the one with the 1986 Eddie Murphy, Michael Jackson, Beat It video jacket on.
His jacket in Beat It was red. Wasn't it? It was red in Beat It and Thriller, wasn't it? Am I completely off base? I hope I'm not misremembering. But also childhood or family anecdote already. Oh my gosh. All right, let me check out the poll here. We have, let's see, B is in the winning right now. It looks like B might be it. So let me make sure I know where I put all my files here. Oh boy. There it is, my live stream file, and then I need my. I apologize. I should have thought about the bingo cards ahead of time, but I didn't. Okay. So executive decision. I'm ending the poll. Bingo card B is the winner. So B it shall be. Let me get that squared away here real quick. No, I want to use paint because Paint is the only program I've got. All right, so we need green circles is what we need. Okay. So on the bingo card, let me get this set up. I apologize, guys. This is a lot more ramshackle than I had intended, and it's all because of the technical difficulties earlier. All right, going to the bingo card B. Links are in the description of the bingo cards if you need one. We have had on the bingo card childhood or family anecdote, circling that one. No, back up there a little bit. Green was the color I wanted, not. I need to have it to stand out. Okay, green, childhood or family anecdote, also circling free space. So there we go on the card. Let's continue.
Okay, and looking good. But in front of that building where we were, in a city called New Haven, the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
And we lived just a few blocks away from a local soup kitchen where every Thursday night.
Okay, for some reason my pause was not working there when I was trying to pause. Okay, so you live near a soup kitchen. Let me back up a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. It's all the technical difficulties trying to start up on a new computer in the middle of the day. Let's see. While I have it here, a couple more hellos. Merry Christmas, Curmudgeon Gaming. Merry Christmas, Nathaniel Rotskull. Merry Christmas, Kenny on Cat Piss. Merry Christmas, Dances with Aardvarks. Aardvarks. Aardvark. Is that the Aardvark from Bullwinkle or something, or Pink Panther? That looks like a very familiar aardvark.
Where every Thursday night we would have dinner. And the best part of that dinner was that dessert at the end, because you know why?
Why?
Boston cream donuts.
Okay, you have a great sentimental affection for Boston cream donuts. TEDXcellence, everyone.
So I would sit through that rye, dry bread, the Caesarless mashed potatoes, the frozen peas, that by the end of the night between me and my sister, we would just end up using them as table weapons.
Uh-huh.
But alas,
those wonderful times have passed.
my hero would come from that corner.
Your hero.
With a black trash bag over his shoulder.
Oh, no.
Of garbage, mashed, discarded donuts. And he'll plop that big bag on him.
It was Donut Claus? A trash bag full of donuts. What?
Discarded donuts.
Discarded donuts?
And he'll plop that big bag on the middle of the floor, and everyone would just rush in. They'd be turned into Mad Max characters.
What?
And I would jump in and throw my little elbows and dig into that bag of mashed donuts. So
Wait. Okay. This is pretty sad if true, and I don't have any reason to doubt it. So the soup kitchen would get a trash bag each day or each Thursday of discarded Boston cream donuts. Yikes. Okay.
Find my treasure.
Uh-huh.
That Boston cream.
Right.
And the best part of that was walking home. Because I'll share that delicious treat with my sister and my friends in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Because we lived in a thriving, vibrant community where at night we would play tag, where we would go over each other's houses and play Nintendo, and their cousins became my cousins.
Okay, I'm getting a picture here of a very tumultuous childhood, at least economically speaking, and so on. Okay, can't really make fun of that or something. I'm just more curious now. All right, so the theory is trash bags for communities.
We had these epic double dutch battles in the summertime.
Okay.
And I can still remember the face and the mustache on the bodega owner on the corner who would give my mother credit on groceries when we didn't have it.
Okay, because it is a vital part of this presentation, I'm going to circle economic disparity because, at least by implication, he's describing a very economically depressed situation growing up. Okay, and
credit wasn't based on scores. It was based on trust. This same year, my sister and I were sitting on these same steps. A cold winter morning.
Okay.
As we watched our clothes, our toys, our entire lives get bagged up in black trash bags.
This is a Christmas downer, guys. I apologize. I'm still waiting to hear where this is going.
From the apartment building all the way to the curb, our entire lives were shoved into a moving truck.
Okay. Well, before we move on with that, holy cow. Thank you, Brittany Holland. Merry Christmas to you. This is Merry Christmas Scribbles. Thank you, Brittany. Hope you're having a good Christmas, and thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. My brain skipped there for a second because I'm still trying to figure out what we're going to do about trash bags and donuts. So, okay. Obviously, our speaker came from wanting beginnings, let's say. So a trash bag full of his favorite donuts, trash bag having to move out of his apartment. Okay.
And I was hiding my face in my sweater because I didn't want my friends from their window to see the tears that was coming down my eyes because I was in mourning. I was in mourning knowing that my community is going to end.
Wait, your community is going to end? You mean your attachment to it because you're moving? What do you mean?
It's like being at your own wake.
Okay.
The university where we lived just 2 blocks away, called Yale. But millions and millions and millions of miles from the engagement of the university had decided to expand faculty housing.
Oh.
So they bought our house.
Oh.
They bought our block.
Okay.
They bought my neighborhood.
Okay. I see. So eminent domain or thereabouts. Boy, this is it would be funny if he was giving this talk at Yale instead of Columbia.
So no more epic double Dutch battles.
Things change.
No more playing tag in the street lights.
Yeah.
No more dinners at our pseudo cousins' houses.
Okay.
And absolutely no more sharing of Boston cream pies.
Right.
You know, New Haven is a classic tale of these two cities where institutions are often housed in underserved communities.
Oh.
And New Haven in the 90s, crime rate was far greater than the national average.
Where are we going? I mean, if I accept, and I don't have any reason not to, if I accept his story about his childhood and the hardships and everything else, okay, fine. Where are we headed? We're 5 minutes into what is effectively we're about a third of the way through the talk, and I don't even know what the point of this is yet.
And disparity was so great that you could see the difference from one side of the street to the other. That you would see on one side of the street, professors with twill jackets and patches. On the other side of the street, we would be playing playgrounds that were filled with crack vials.
Yes. Okay. Well, I already circled economic disparity. When are we going to arrive at a point or argument?
And from that moment, I knew I wanted to be a social worker.
Oh, that's where we're going. Okay. So this was all your origin story for becoming a social worker. All right. Good for you.
I wanted to be that person that could advocate for all of those who have lived their lives in black trash bags.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to be that person that could give a voice to the voiceless, that who often are designed out of the planning process.
I'd be curious to know, when Yale bought up all the territory and buildings and everything, what exactly was the plan, if any plan, for moving the people out and into homes? That's the one question that came to my mind. Is like, that's one little piece of the story that I didn't quite get. So Yale decided to expand its territory, cited some kind of eminent domain kind of thing with the government, moved everybody out. I'm assuming they got some kind of compensation or assistance with finding housing again. I mean, that's a lousy thing to have happen. Don't get me wrong. When an entire like neighborhood or community is overtaken by some larger institution, that sucks. But okay, this was your origin story to becoming a social worker, to give a voice to the voiceless. I'm hearing some diversity advocate vibes coming here.
Who were not included as a part of this new community that was being created for us. We had no choice. We had no relocation assistance. We had no idea where we were. Was that everything had ended. My loss of community, my loss of belongingness, and my support system was gone.
Wait, no relocation? Okay, I don't have any way to tell one way or the other the accuracy of this. No relocation assistance, whatever. They just bought up all your buildings and kicked you out. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could imagine a governmental entity doing something that cold. So that doesn't seem beyond reproach to me. But okay.
And now I'm a faculty professor at another institution.
Columbia?
And I arrive on campus, and every time I arrive in the state of dual consciousness.
What?
Where on one hand, I have this very lived experience where I know what it's like to be displaced by institutions making decisions for communities.
Okay. Again, stipulating for the sake of argument that his story is accurate. All right. Fair enough.
I know what it's like to have that loss. And on the other hand, I have this reality where I work for an institution that has its own history of community accountability.
Oh, boy. Okay, great. So you're kind of a hypocrite. I suppose you're taking a paycheck from the very evil that displaced you as a kid, at least by extension or symbolically. Okay, and
it gets hard.
Does it? Why?
It's real hard.
Why?
And
then quit. Then quit. Stop taking money from the evil overarching entity. Or can't you?
The only way I know how to live and exist in these two worlds is to immerse myself in community engaged scholarship.
Okay, so you're benefiting people from within the beast then?
Andrew Van der Ven coined this term, engaged scholarship, is when community members, practitioners, academics, researchers all collaborate together to be able to solve real world problems. These wicked problems that plague communities so often don't get resolved in isolation.
Oh, okay. Is this, are we now getting to the grand scheme here of what it is you're offering? Okay, so what are you doing as a professor who grew up in a, let's say, a displaced situation? How are you practicing what you preach? By taking, what you've learned and your position as a professor at, I'm assuming, Columbia University, if that's where he's giving the talk. How are you then returning what you've learned, your knowledge, your expertise to the community?
Because in the words of W.E.B. Du Bois.
Du Bois? You mean Du Bois? No, it's Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois. Yeah, W.E.B. Du Bois. Not at all a racial supremacist, but okay, what does WEB have to say?
He states that education must not simply teach work, it must teach life. That this ecosystem must be created where transformation happens when there's radical inclusion.
Radical inclusion, radical. We just did this the last TEDx. It was like, what, radical federalism. Radical inclusion. Is that your new buzzword or buzz phrase?
And radical inclusion means that all have ownership.
Yep. Okay. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, circling that on the board. Remember, we're on bingo card B. Let's see. Let's go over the bingo card one time and see if we have anything else on there. Marginalized, marginalization. Yes, he talked about people on the margins. Circling that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. Yes, because as he just said, he kind of works for the same sort of institution that displaced his family after a fashion. So circling that one. Contradicts own point or argument. I'm not quite sure what his argument is yet. That people should take their education back to the community to solve problems. That seems to be his thesis statement. I guess we'll see how it goes. Feminism, no. Microaggressions or unconscious bias, not yet. Privilege, it's implied with the both sides of the street deal. I'm going to wait a bit to see if he gives us something more concrete. Benevolent condescension, not yet, really. No, he's told his stories and things. Weightless example. No, his backstory feeds into, at least so far, the narrative of coming from a history of displacement from institutions, and now I work for one. Okay, so yeah, that still works. Plays victim. I'm not sure I can say plays here because his backstory sounds, unless I'm given something to think otherwise, it sounds completely legitimate. So I can't say that it's a manufactured victimhood or anything. Collectivize his own demographic. Not quite yet. He's been very general. Argumentative non sequitur. Not so far. A list, not yet. Not a formal list, at least. Mind reading or assumes motives. Not clearly, not so. Patriarchy, no. Anecdote that probably never happened. I haven't heard anything that sounded too perfect. I mean, I'm open to arguments later, but I haven't heard anything that sounded too perfect. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion. Yes, we have inclusion, or radical inclusion. White supremacy, not so much yet. He hasn't said anything that would lean to that quite yet. Systemic or institutional, yes, institutions, larger institutions and so on, taking their place in their land and everything. Leaves out vital context. I don't know if there's anything vital left out yet. I guess we'll wait and see. Sales pitch for product or service? No. And word salad. The opening has been very meandering, but I wouldn't call it word salad yet. But anyway, remember, this is bingo card B. Links to the bingo cards are in the description. So far, we have on the board marginalized, marginalization, self-vilification or wretchedness, economic disparity, free space, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, diversity, equity, and inclusion, childhood or family anecdote, and lastly, systemic or institutional. So let's continue.
All have value and all have responsibility.
Okay.
And this happens when we first begin to design in the most vulnerable. Take a strong consideration and recognition about the historical injustices that have happened to that community, the power imbalances, the diverse needs of that specific community, and understanding that it's localized, not generalized.
Okay, so, all right, I get the theory. So I need an active example, as I ask for so many times on this series. Give me an active example of what you're talking about so I can sort of sink my mental teeth into your argument.
And this type of transformation begins to occur when we all work together. Because it's not about these ones and zeros, who is and who's not. It's that collectively we create this beautiful code of community transformation.
No, it is about who is and who's not, because you just separated everything out from the powerless and the voiceless, and Okay.
But in isolation, they create binaries of
What?
separation
Yeah.
that create a larger birth of disparities that exist.
Okay. You're edging into word salad territory. What are you talking about? Give us an example.
And that our community credible messengers and returning citizens and
What?
family members like my mother, who's a single mother and lives with schizophrenia, like my brother who spent most of his life in the carceral system, like my friends who have died in the hands of gun violence, all have value.
Okay, we're word salad territory. That was, yeah, no, you were on a line and then we're all over the place. Carceral system. Oh boy.
All have worth.
Uh-huh.
All have responsibility.
Okay, so what is your responsibility and how have you taken that responsibility?
My sister in this work, Jamila Davis, spent 11 and a half years in federal prison.
Whoa, whoa, wow. Okay. Your sister in this work spent 11 years in federal prison. Why? Wait, what was that name again in case he doesn't bring it up? Hold on. What was her name? Sorry.
Jamila Davis.
Jabrilla Davis? Sorry, one more time. One more time. Let me back that up.
All have responsibility.
Yeah.
My sister in this work, Jamila Davis, spent 11 and a half years in federal prison.
For what?
11 and a half years.
For what?
And upon her release that same year.
No. Keyword Amazons might have turned captions. I don't have captions. This is the raw video. I don't have captions for this, unfortunately. I'm going to take a stab at spelling the name. Let's see. No, federal prison. Let's see if that changes the calculus here. Oh, there we go. Jamila Davis went to trial in New Jersey federal court to fight charges that she had committed a mortgage fraud. A jury convicted her. Hold on. Let's see. She's sentenced to prison term, same year as Lehman Brothers closed. All right, so 11 years in federal prison for mortgage fraud. I don't have the time or the ability to review the case to see how legitimate it was or anything else. But anyway, so it's interesting that his first story is about housing and being displaced from your homes and everything. And then his sister in this fight was convicted of mortgage fraud for 11 years. That's something else.
Years in federal prison. 11 and a half years. And upon her release that same year, she was able to create a national learning academy.
So wait, she commits real estate fraud in such a way that it gets federal time for over a decade. And the first thing that she wants to do is start a learning academy. Would I feel safe investing in such a project?
Where young people were able to learn about social justice advocacy, learn about entrepreneurship. One program in particular, which we created, that I'm very proud of, is the peer-to-peer mental health ambassadorship program.
Just tell me that someone, a third-party reputable institution, is overseeing the books of this organization you've put together. That's all I'd say to that. A few more Merry Christmases here as people pop in here. Skid Caesar, Merry Christmas to you. Dina B, Merry Christmas. TC, Merry Christmas. Assassin of the Gray, if I didn't already say so, Merry Christmas to you. Molly Okani, Merry Christmas. And did I see anyone else? Oh, yeah, Short Line 819, Merry Christmas. A2P, Merry Christmas. And Darren Root, Merry Christmas to you. I hope I didn't miss anyone, but if I did, I hope to see you in the chat sooner or later. All right, your federally convicted fraudster partner in a learning program for social justice for children. Sounds great.
Where we included young people to be able to design for themselves what does community safety and belongingness looks like for them.
What could a child possibly know about that in any meaningful way? Well, I guess it depends on what age group we're talking about.
They were the ones who not only were invited, but they designed, they executed, strategized, they created localized strategies about inclusion so that the first line of mental health support came from them, this mutual aid as a protective factor.
Whoa. Okay. Several pieces of information that I need. What age group are we talking about here? How did they execute these things? What was the strategy? What have they done? Give me a success story. I mean, I assume you have one. Just saying these things happen doesn't tell me anything. I need details, and if I don't get details soon, I'm circling leaves out vital context because it is demonstrably so.
You want to know what the beauty of all that is?
I do want to know what the beauty of it is. I want to know the beauty of it embodied in an active example.
They were all compensated. They were all paid
For
to
what?
participate.
In what? What did they do? Who did they do it for? And more especially, given your partner's prison pedigree, where did the money come from? And where did it go?
Because that asylee who newly arrived to that school and participated in this program.
Asylee. So potentially illegal immigrant?
Did not have to choose between working a job under the table and finding community.
What? Wait. What? Okay, if they're actually an asylee, i.e. someone who is seeking asylum, if they're officially seeking asylum, there are, depending on where they end up, considerations made for finding legitimate employment while their application is being processed. If an asylee has to look for work under the table, I'm not quite sure that they actually qualify as an asylee. Sounds more like an illegal immigrant without a work visa, but now they can work legitimately through your... Okay, this is going in directions I had no idea we were going. So your foundation organization is possibly, I don't know because he's not telling us the details, but potentially employing illegal immigrants to do what? What?
And having that level of support. And this ecosystem is not solely with institutions and young people, it's with government also is engaged in this work.
What?
Where corporations are engaged in this work.
Oh yes, the work, the great work. It's interesting to me that he has not given us even one active example of a program, shown some pictures from a parade or a rally or an organization or some kind of event. What is it that your organization does? And has he named it yet? I know he talked, but did he give it a name? Because I'm getting ready to circle sales pitch for product or service if otherwise.
Like in the city of Newark, New Jersey, there's one mic, one city, one hood, one Newark program.
Okay.
In which the city is engaging with returning citizens to be the first line of support for public safety. To be
returning citizens? Okay, I must have disconnected from the lingo of the last several years. What qualifies someone to be a quote unquote returning citizen?
To be the first line of support for public safety, to be the peacekeepers on their block. So rather than waiting for them to commit a crime, what we're doing is we're engaging with them to prevent recidivism.
Whoa, okay. Returning citizens, are these people that are let out of jail? Is that what I'm talking? Is that what we're talking about here? Is that the euphemism for ex-convict? It's just, whoa, I am all over the place. Okay, so the city of Newark is employing ex-cons as public safety officials to help prevent recidivism. You're going to take people who have a demonstrable and provable history of breaking the law and put into their hands public safety on some sort of, I don't know, soft neighborhood watch quasi-vigilante role. Am I getting that right?
And they're being trained into how to identify emotions, how to begin to create peacekeeping, how to have financial literacy to break that intergenerational cycle.
Oh, you just almost Freudian slip there, interracial cycle. Okay, so post-conviction job training. I'm not against the idea in any way, shape, or form. But the way that you keep trying to sugarcoat things with twists of phrases and such really doesn't help anything. Returning citizens. I hadn't heard that one before. Or if I have, I've blocked it out because of mental trauma or something.
And they were all compensated.
Yeah, everybody's getting paid. No, I get that. Yeah, you've got your illegal aliens showing up to your organization to work a not under the table job, I guess, and getting paid for it. Okay. You have your ex-convicts being employed by the city as public safety officers, and they're getting paid. That seems to be a very important factor. Okay.
Because as Maslow's hierarchy of needs state, we have to have our immediate needs met before we could talk about community accountability, before we could deal with our trauma that we've experienced as children.
The trauma we experience. What about the trauma that your returning citizens inflicted on their victims ahead of time? What about the trauma that were inflicted on the victims of your partner in your foundation through mortgage fraud? What are you doing to redress that trauma before you get to your own?
So that means that they don't have to worry about eating today or attending a community peace rally session.
A community peace rally session? Okay.
They don't have to worry about who's going to watch my child in order for me to attend this planning meeting and be present.
Okay, I'm circling leaves out vital context because, I mean, something could change in the next 4 minutes, but he's not given us I mean, the city of Newark employing ex-cons as public safety officers, if that is true, and it seems so outlandish, I have to assume it is, but let's say that that's true. That's got nothing to do with his organization. That's the city doing that. And he didn't say like our organization made that happen. So we still haven't heard a single active example about what his personal organization is doing. Frontline mental health whatevers. I don't even know what that means. So anyway, circling leaves out vital context. Also circling sales pitch for product or service, because at least in a way he's trying to sell on the idea that his organization is doing some good in the world, except I don't know what that is. Either way, whether he does or doesn't, it's still a word, a sales pitch for product or service. And actually, with that...
Bingo! What? Bingo! Yeah! Of course! Of course!
We have a bingo down the bottom row of bingo card B. Remember, the bingo card links are in the description. We're on bingo card B. I'll be going over the bingo for this talk shortly after the talk is over with.
All have voices. All are included. All have ownership.
All? Who's all? Who are you talking about?
So I invite you today.
What?
So I want you to bring up this image of who is on your board of trustees.
Who is on my board of trustees? You mean in like the abstract sense, figuratively speaking?
Who is on your board of director?
What?
Bring that up.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, the only board of trustees or board of director that I possess in this endeavor is me. It's all me. The Scribe Light channel has one member of the board. But okay, I am imagining myself. It sounds very narcissistic.
And are any of those members from the community?
Oh, the community of what? What? The community? I don't know. What commends someone from, quote unquote, the community to be on the board of directors?
And are any of those members credible messengers?
Credible messengers. Boy, we're getting new terms all over this. I feel as though he's dancing around the concept of, are they the correct color and or ethnicity?
Who have that lived experience?
Uh-huh.
And for those of us who work for companies or organizations,
Yeah.
identify the partnerships that exist. Is it just donations when it's back to school time?
What?
Is it simply when it's Christmas season and we want to have some toys for tots?
Hey, it is Christmas season. What's wrong with Toys for Tots? I mean, as far as I know, and I'm happy to be corrected, Toys for Tots does not have one as one of its founding members, someone who is federally convicted of mortgage fraud.
Or are we creating sustainable long-term partnerships that addresses these wicked problems?
Okay, sorry. On the one hand, I have to pause for the sake of YouTube. On the other hand, I have to pause for the sake of my own mental exasperation. What problem is your organization solving? You have to be able to identify and give to us one example of a problem in the community that your organization has been working to or has already addressed. Because otherwise, you bringing up your organization as a shining example of what should be done by people doesn't hold a lot of water. You have to lead by example. So I need an example. What are you talking about?
The next time we are at a community planning meeting, I want us to look around that room.
Uh-huh.
And rather than being able to identify who's in that room, identify who's not.
I want the next time we get together, let's all prove a negative together, shall we? Who's not in this room? Donald Trump's not in this room. Colin Farrell's not in this room. Christy Brinkley's not in this room. I could go on forever.
And why not?
I don't know. Why isn't Christy Brinkley in the room with you?
Because as we create community transformation, it means that all have ownership.
All?
And just like that bag of discarded donuts,
Okay.
thrown out yesterday donuts,
Uh-huh.
we got to dig in
Uh-huh.
and find
Uh-huh.
that beautiful Boston cream.
With its white center.
Because it has value. Although discarded,
What?
it is not forgotten.
Okay, dude. I mean, I'll give you an A for effort, but trying to draw a line between a 2-day-old Boston cream donut and people living on the margins, so to speak, it's a stretch. It's a stretch.
I'm that Boston cream.
Okay. And?
I represent
No, you don't.
all those lives
No, you don't.
and community members
No, you don't.
whose community has been rewritten for them.
No, you don't represent anyone but yourself. Until you are elected to a position, you don't represent anybody but yourself. Come on. I mean, your personal origin is compelling enough of an example that it can be emblematic of things that were taking place at that time and have taken place elsewhere. You don't need to start making grandiose declarations of your importance. Your example alone is enough, right? You told the story of what happened to your entire neighborhood, your entire community. You don't represent everybody in the community, but you do represent an experience, that singular experience. Beyond that, no. You had me for a minute there, but you're losing me.
And although discarded,
Uh-huh.
they're not forgotten.
Uh-huh.
For those of us here in this room who may not look like others want you to look,
What does that mean?
identify, born the wrong side of different side of the tracks, and have been discarded.
You're a professor at Columbia University. You have not been discarded. You said it yourself. Sorry, I cut him off a little bit.
Tracks and have been discarded. You are that Boston cream. We are that treasure that can transform communities.
Oh boy.
Although we may have been discarded by society, we all have value. We all have ownership. We all have responsibility.
Yeah, we do all have responsibility. And some of us do have ownership, like your partner, who had a responsibility over people's mortgages and apparently defrauded people and went to federal prison for over a decade. And not even a single example yet of what, at least as a role model, what your organization has been doing to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
Because that little boy looking to his sister for answers she could not give. They had no choice. There was nothing that they could do. Now, this is all I do.
What is all you do? What?
All I do to ensure that the resources I have co-design community belongingness and create transformation where all have value.
How? For crying out loud, you had 16 minutes. Nothing, not a single example, not a single program. I mean, unless I misunderstood. If I misunderstood his story about the ex-convicts becoming public safety officers or whatever, if his organization had a hand in doing that, maybe I misunderstood. But that sounded like the city of Newark decided to do that. If he had a hand in it, that wasn't made clear. But beyond that, what? What are you doing?
Our credible messengers,
credible
our community members.
What is a credible messenger? I know he's not going to tell us. There's only like 20 seconds left in this thing. But still, what is a credible messenger? What does that mean? Someone that's coming along that actually has, quote unquote, lived experience or subject matter expertise in something. I can only assume that that's what that means. But then why say credible messenger?
Are houseless individuals.
Houseless individuals? You mean homeless individuals?
Are undocumented.
Illegal.
Because in the words of my good friend, colleague, social justice advocate, who said it best.
Is that your federally convicted mortgage fraud partner or somebody else?
Those who are closest to the problem are the ones closest to the solution.
Then name a problem that you are attempting to solve.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Oy. Okay, well, that was whatever that was. All right, so we're going to move on now to the bingo card. So just as with previous streams when I do multiple TEDx's, I'm going to, let me get this set up here because I didn't get that set up earlier. We're going to use one bingo card and different colors to represent the different talks. Now, I don't know how well this is going to show up with the stockings hung by the chimney with care, but I'm going to give it my best shot here. So let's see. I'll shrink it down a smidge just so we can kind of see it a little bit better. Okay. Hopefully you can make that out. Doesn't cover up the squares themselves. All right. Let's go over it one more time. Contradicts own point or argument. Contradicts. I mean, I don't know that he gave us anything to contradict. He just said that, you know, people should give back to the community and so on and so forth. But he never gave us an example of how he's doing it specifically. So is that a contradiction or is that just a lack of context? I don't know. Feminism, no, he never brought up any kind of gender imbalances or anything else. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. Yes, I'm going to say that the criticism he gave to the audience over who is your board of directors and what are they doing and so on and so forth. I'm going to say that falls within that category. I think that's fair. Let's see, privilege. There was definitely an undertone of the haves and the have-nots in the course of this. So I'm going to circle privilege as well. Benevolent condescension. Do I feel condescended to? I don't feel condescended to so much as just feeling incomplete in the argument or the presentation because it just didn't give me anything. Weightless example. Unless somebody can correct me, when he said, when we talked about the public safety officers in Newark, unless that was somehow connected to his organization, and as far as I know, he never made it clear, I'm circling that one because that wasn't much of an example towards his argument of his theory. That was something that Newark apparently did. Whether it's correct or not, here's the thing, whether it's correct in the real world or not, I don't feel like it was at any point connected to his argument for his organization and what they should be doing on his theory. That was something the city did. So, plays victim. This is a tough one because in his origin story, and I'm going to keep calling it an origin story, I didn't hear anything that sounded false. And the lack of clarity he provided us as he went into the rest of his presentation didn't really center himself so much. So I'm not sure if plays victim applies, but I'm open to arguments. Collectivize his own demographic. Ultimately, yes, I represent this, I represent that. Yeah, one way or the other, he was definitely doing that. Argumentative non sequitur. Okay, his backstory was relevant to the overall of the presentation, whether he successfully argued it or not. I'm not sure. And even the Newark example, at least I assume, was showing how you can take someone who has been, quote unquote, discarded or otherwise and put them towards a productive and more prosperous life future. If that was the point of what he was going at, okay. So I guess that's not really a non sequitur. I'm not sure there was a non sequitur. A list. Did he give us a formal list over the course of this? I don't think so. Mind reading assumes motives. I mean, if I was being, this is a bingo square, so I got to be careful here. If I was being very generous, maybe again going back to the whole board of directors thing, but I'm not sure, and I don't want to make a snap judgment on that. Patriarchy, no, he never really, again, he never brought up like anything about gender or overarching men doing this or that either. Okay, I know this is going to be a controversial one. Anecdote that probably never happened. Him leaving out why his partner went to jail does not invalidate the fact that she did go to jail. So that's not an anecdote that probably never happened. It was just leaving out, vital context. Do I disbelieve his origin story with the trash bags and the donuts? No, that sounds legit. I can't think of an anecdote here that didn't happen or something that sounded too good to be true. Again, I'm happy to take arguments otherwise, but I don't see it. And lastly, white supremacy. I know this is going to be controversial too. He relatively deftly avoided making the talk too much about race. He talked in very general terms about people. So white supremacy or racial divisions was not, as far as I can tell, a main support beam, for lack of a better phrase, as I'm slightly inebriated now, in his argument. So I don't think white supremacy applies. So with that all being said, that's the card as I have it. I'll take arguments for squares to be circled now. If you have an argument for a square to be circled, be sure to tag me in it, and we will go on. Scribe Light from Advocates Diaboli. Context on Jamila Davis. She was using straw buyers to get loans and flip properties, 7 of them. She was not the only one involved, but got the worst out of the situation. Okay. Well, thank you for that extra information, Advocatus. Appreciate it. Advocates Diaboli. Sorry, my words are slurring. It might be the pepperjack. Plays victim. Peas feel sorry for me. Gives me fresh donuts. Jesus, because the Hugh White man is evil. Peas. No, sorry. That doesn't quite pass muster. Let's see. Any other arguments here? Let's see. Did that one already. Oh, by the way, Merry Christmas, Decode. And Merry Christmas, James Barber, to you. Who else is here? Sora Luna. Did I already say Merry Christmas? If not, Merry Christmas. John Miller. Did I say Merry Christmas to you? Well, Merry Christmas to you. If I didn't, my memory is already going sideways because of the pepperjack. Let's see. Advocatus adds, yeah, she did get sort of screwed, though, compared to everyone else doing it. Okay, well, her sentence, I don't know the details of the case. Her sentence might have been overmuch for the crime, but still, 10 years, 11 years is a long time. That's a long time. Mortgage fraud, yeah. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? We got one bingo so far. And, Poker Pierce, Merry Christmas to you. Well, I'm not seeing any other arguments for squares to be circled, at least not the, save for Assassin the Greater Advocatus. So I think that's where we got one bingo out of this one, and we're using the color green for our first one. So for the second TEDx, thank you, Pepperjack, I'll be using the next Christmas color of red. Yes, red. And what is our next presentation? Well, this is going to be one that's, I can already tell it's going to be something else. Let me read to you the title. Here is the title of our second presentation. Teaching is a drag. Lipstick, learning, and liberation. So presumably we're talking about school, elementary or otherwise. I don't know. Wait a second. Gen T Maxi, did I already say Merry Christmas? Merry Christmas to you. Sorry, I dropped on one of the big brick marzipan chocolate logs at work. I was for sure would hear that slap because it was. I don't understand your. This must be Canadian. She must be speaking Canadian. That must be it. That must be it. Okay. Anyway, Scanner Daffley, Merry Christmas to you. So let's start. So remember, we're still on bingo card B. We're going to use the same card for all 3 presentations. So if you haven't already, change the color on your bingo card or wipe the slate clean. Here we go for, what was it again? Sorry. Teaching is a drag, lipstick, learning, and liberation.
Not what you were expecting?
Exactly what I was expecting. I've been doing this for a while now.
I get that a lot.
Oh boy.
So I'm Dr. Brent Satterley, and I am a professor of social work at Widener University Center for Social Work Education.
Okay, so you're dealing with university students. I mean, it's not great, but it's not nearly as bad as it could be, I suppose.
And I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about how drag shows up in the classroom and can unlock student learning and liberation.
Yeah, I got that lazy town plastic hair thing going on. Okay. For as much as it can be, My mind is open.
I'm a drag queen,
No kidding.
obviously, but I'm also a teacher.
There's the rub, as it were.
Many years ago, my therapist told me that teaching was a really good profession for me to go into because it was one of the ways in which I could get some of my, shall we say, self-important needs met in an appropriate manner.
Your therapist should have their license re-examined.
When I was a kid, it was the teachers that used art and drama and music and theater and costumes that drew me into the learning process. That continued as I went to college and then graduate school.
Okay. Sorry, I do have to occasionally pause just for YouTube's sake. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that the pepper jack is hitting me particularly strong at this moment, but we'll see.
I remember professors, one by the name of Dr. Rita Rose. She was one of my philosophy professors, and she would come dressed in outrageous garb of philosophers from an era gone by.
You know, I've talked about him before. My anthropology teacher, also a history teacher in high school, would come in for particular lessons dressed up as a figure from that era. Like he did an amazing Teddy Roosevelt. He came in with like the little round glasses and like a fake mustache and the coat and everything. And he'd basically give the whole lesson as Teddy Roosevelt, or at least as best as he could. So I have an appreciation for that. I can appreciate that. Of course, he's talking about someone else and not himself. So,
and she would sing over the top, outrageous, dense philosophical concepts that I still remember to this day.
Great.
Dr. Connie McCaffrey, one of my education professors,
also did not come in as a drag queen,
would come in dressed up in costume, and she would role play specific teaching strategies, some that were really effective and some that were completely outrageous and over the top.
And how many times did these teachers come in dressed up in a garish representation of the opposite sex simply for the sake of coming in dressed up in a garish representation of the opposite sex? Coming in to a classroom to teach a lesson dressed up as a, I don't know, representative or representation, so to speak, of the era, the character, the person, whatever, is one thing. That is far, far, far and away from, unless there's some other qualifying information here, far and away from coming in dressed in drag.
And it stayed with me.
Great.
Drag also does that.
No.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
No. Okay. And it's possible that he comes up with something in the next 30 seconds that changes my mind. But the answer is no. If your first two examples are teachers that come into a classroom dressed up in costume and even role play as a figure from history or as a representation of some kind of concept or lesson or whatever, that is a teaching tool. That is to get the students engaged in the subject matter at hand. It is going to be the most Herculean of efforts to make me rescind that WTF circle. And he's got the next 30 some odd seconds to do it, because drag, no, that satisfies your needs. As you even just said a moment ago about what your therapist told you. It's not about educating the children. It's not about, trying to bring history to life or something to that extent. It's all about you. So, okay, here we go. You got the next 30 seconds of the presentation's time. At the very least, give me your elevator pitch on how drag equates to a teacher dressing up as a learning tool
in the classroom. And it does that in 5 different ways.
Oh, 5 different ways. Well, there's a list. I'll circle a list on the board. Our first circle for this presentation.
Drag attracts.
Drag attracts.
Drag unbalances.
Drag unbalances. I just want to make sure I get these right. Also, I love a list. So, okay. Attracts, unbalances.
Drag disarms.
Attracts, unbalances, and disarms. This sounds like a good strategy for the classroom. I can't wait to hear what the attracts part is supposed to do.
Drag connects.
Drag connects.
And drag activates.
I can't even imagine. Okay.
But before I talk about those things, we have to start with taking a look at what drag is.
It's a fetish. I don't know what else to say. I know maybe that's controversial. Is it? Okay, you tell me then. What is drag?
Well, that's something of a complicated question.
No, it's a very easy question. But how you decide to massage the answer to that will be very telling.
But simply put, drag is the over-exaggeration of gender expression.
That is the outgrowth of it, yes. But what is the driving force?
Often in queer communities and cultures, usually for entertainment purposes, including things like...
Okay, hold on. I don't know if he's going to read his own bullet points, but for those of you listening at home, on the screen he has some bullet points up there. 3 bullet points. A stylized exaggeration of gender through clothing, jewelry, shoes, and makeup. Yes, okay. Number 2, a hyperbole of expression in masculine and feminine ways. That is basically the first bullet point, just restated with different words. And the 3rd bullet point, an expression of authenticity. I'm not quite sure what that means, since it's an over-the-top exaggeration of a gender that you are not. But okay.
Costumes and makeup and wigs and over-the-top outrageous acts and things of that nature.
Yeah, but you're not telling us what drives it to be done in the first place. A couple things in the chat here real quick. Just Paul, Merry Christmas. Scribe, finally live. I've been live for a while, as far as I know. But yes, finally live. And also, Merry Christmas, Q Continuum. Hope you're doing well. Did I miss anybody else in the meantime? Oh, Faithless, Merry Christmas. Another Guy 5, or Another Guy V, Merry Christmas. Okay.
It also can be for competitions or even sometimes politicking and sometimes teaching.
Okay, all of that other stuff is irrelevant. You're supposed to be telling us why dressing in drag is equitable to a teacher dressing as a historical figure. You got a long, very wide, Grand Canyon-sized gap to bridge between those two places.
And drag shows up in that way in classrooms in the context of this kind of work.
No. Unless you have something amazing to tell me, the answer so far is no. How does you dressing up in what qualifies effectively as a personal fetish to present yourself and feed your own ego and needs in front of a classroom, how does that equate to a teacher temporarily dressing up as a historical figure to help get students engaged in the material, as well as perhaps personify something that would otherwise be very dry textbook learning? Come on.
Historically, queer history is messy.
What? Okay, so you'd only do this when you're teaching a quote unquote queer history class?
It's actually quite hard to track.
How much of a percentage, and I don't know the answer to this, but I'd be curious to know, of the queer community, however you evaluate that these days, what percentage participate in drag? Like drag, not, dressing up as more male than female or vice versa, but actually drag, the over-the-top stage performance, again, as our speaker even said, hyperbole of gender expression. What percentage participates in that? I'd be surprised if it was a very large percentage.
A lot of queer history has not been captured in textbooks or written down, partially because of discrimination and prejudice, and
partially because discussing sexual orientations to any great degree in the classroom is irrelevant, unless you're going for some college course or something. By the way, and I still wonder, our speaker teaches at a university. Is he advocating for this drag theory to be taking place in K through 12 schools as well?
attempts at erasure, literally wiping us off the map.
No one's wiping you off the map,
so to speak, but also because different cultures don't always capture history in the written word and will pass on traditions through an oral tradition from generation to generation. And this is the case with queer culture.
Okay, Pepperjack, you are insulating my brain a little bit too much. I have no idea where we are or where we're going. Oh, wait, no, I'm watching TEDx. It's the same regardless.
In this context, we can sometimes look back at when drag showed up on the scene.
What?
And because of that, it's difficult to pinpoint it exactly.
I'm circling word salad. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So as far as I can tell, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I can tell, the main driver of this presentation is an argument for why drag should be used in the classroom. Am I off base on that? Okay, granted that I'm not off base on that, I'm still waiting for what. Here's where it comes down to. And I said it before, but just to make it clear. His opening examples were teachers using costume and role-playing to embody and enhance lessons on specific historical periods or concepts or whatever. Okay. Whereas the teacher becomes temporarily a visual aid of a kind, an aid of engagement to the students on the subject. That is the standard that our speaker has set, and that is the standard that our speaker has to meet in arguing for drag in the classroom. Now, I could see somebody, if you're in college, because college is where this kind of thing would happen. If you're taking a queer studies class in college, and they do exist, and the teacher comes in drag for a specific section in the class dealing with drag in the queer community, fine. Great. It runs in line with the opening examples. But beyond that, I don't know what our speaker is trying to pitch here.
We have seen it in times of Shakespeare. We have seen it on the vaudeville circuit.
Okay, wait. Times of Shakespeare, men dressing up as women in the times of Shakespeare was not drag. At least not as it's defined today. Come on.
and in 19th and 20th century Black and brown queer ballroom culture.
Black and brown queer ballroom culture of the 19th century. Okay. I already circled word salad.
And of course, we've seen it on a more contemporary basis in modern worlds where drag queens, drag kings, and drag performers of all gender identities show up in gay bars or queer events or queer establishments in ways that are absolutely over the top and outrageous.
You're going to talk about drag story time? And again, your examples do not match.
We've also seen things like pride events, drag brunch, drag queen story hour.
Oh, well, it had to come up eventually.
Those kinds of things. And
yeah, those kinds of. Sorry, I'm really frustrated. I'm waiting. I know we got time to go.
Of course, in contemporary pop culture, called like hello RuPaul, right? Am I right?
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. RuPaul is a person. Yeah.
So
does RuPaul justify drag in the classroom? Is that just like with the last presentation? I need an active example.
Drag artist Sasha Velour.
Drag artist
says, if we want to be legendary, we have to weave ourselves that we can connect with folks who understand a little bit more about drag culture.
We have to insinuate ourselves into the mainstream to be accepted. That's what I heard.
But drag is something each of us does every single day.
What?
At least in part.
What?
We reflect those in the form of a persona. A persona is a mask or a role that we adopt.
No. If I go to work in the office and I assume a professional demeanor that otherwise would make no sense and I wouldn't actually take on at my home or amongst my friends, I am not participating in drag. What?
For the purposes of helping us to navigate daily lived experience.
No. I say no.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
I'm happy to be corrected, but this is what I would call a false equivalency. False equivalency. No.
The experience of what it is like to go to a certain place, to meet certain people, to have a daily lived process or experience.
Certain place, certain people, daily process or experience. What?
I'll give you some examples.
Oh, thank goodness. All right. I think this is the first time since the first presentation till now that somebody has actually said examples. Okay, give me an example. Maybe I'll take back the WTF. It's not impossible.
Let's say you're going to have a sit-down meeting with your boss.
Okay, a work example. I'm going to have a sit-down meeting with my boss.
You have work drag. You might wear something a little more formal.
Work drag. No, I'm not taking back the WTF.
You might have something that is a bit, professional, depending on what it is you do.
I always went to work dressed professionally.
Other examples might include going out with friends. You might have something that's more informal, something maybe even a little bit more risque, depending on what you're going to do that evening.
Wait, no. Even your own definition defies this. If I decide to dress for an occasion, that is not drag. That is not an over-exaggerated expression of the opposite gender that I am in a practically comical way. Come on. It's not hyperbole either. If I decide to wear a suit to the opera, I'm not performing opera drag. Come on.
Or something along the lines of going to hang out with family for a holiday gathering.
You know what? The only example I want to hear from our speaker at this point, given the title of the presentation and the promise of the introduction, is the example of the classroom. That's all I want to hear. All this other stuff doesn't wash. The only circumstance that makes any sense to any of this is what was on the package, and that is in the classroom. When are we getting there?
You definitely have family drag.
Oh,
Totally.
crying out.
So much so that you might actually revert back to roles that you used to play when you were young. I would say also we have teacher drag.
Oh, okay. My wish is granted. All of that insulatory material, and now we get to the core of it. All right. Tell me about teacher drag. Do you mean like dressing appropriately for the classroom? Like your work clothes?
When I walk into a classroom, regardless if I'm wearing makeup or a wig, I'm in teacher drag.
No, it's not regardless. It's not regardless. If you walk into a classroom in a dress shirt and slacks to be a teacher, it's not regardless as compared to what you're wearing now. Okay. I'm going over to the card. I'm circling benevolent condescension because if nothing else, I am being condescended to here. This is just silliness. Absolute silliness. Thank you, Matt Barnes, so much. Merry Christmas, Scribbles and chat. Can't stay. Just wanted to say hi. Well, Merry Christmas, Matt. Thank you so much for your generosity. Hope you have a good one. Hope you and yours are all safe and well and got something they wanted for Christmas. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay.
At least in part.
Sorry, that sigh was not. Sorry. I just realized that sigh I just gave, that was not for Matt Barnes. That was for me going like, I got to listen to this more. If that was interpreted incorrectly, I just want to clarify. That was not, I'm very appreciative of Matt Barnes and hope he has a good Christmas. I got to go back to this nonsense again. That was what that sigh was for. Okay.
Wig, I'm in teacher drag, at least in part. And I want to talk a little bit about how blowing that up a little bit shows up in the classroom.
Blowing that up. No, it's two different things. If you're wearing a dress shirt and slacks, it is not blowing it up to then put on a Jackie Onassis dress, a plastic helmet of hair and makeup. It's not one of these things is not simply a diluted version of the other.
First, we'll start with drag attracts attention.
Oh, attracts attention? Yes, it certainly does. I'll grant you that one.
I mean, hello? How could you miss this?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, you're asking the audience that one? Okay, well, I have something for that.
Right?
Yeah, I do have that.
Right?
Okay, right.
The idea here is that as soon as I walked out, there was a sense of, oh my goodness.
Okay, mind reading assumes motives of his audience. Circling that one. Was there a sense of, oh my goodness, or do you just like to think that there was a sense of, oh my goodness, for your ego? I have to wonder. I can't read minds, but I can guess. Thank you, Zero the Hero 909. This whole speech is a drag. I know. Low-hanging fruit. Well, I'm suffering along with you. I wanted to know. My curiosity knows no bounds, even this. But the third TEDx I have lined up will kind of return to my usual wheelhouse, I think. Maybe. We'll find out. But at least in the meantime, I didn't know where else to do this particular TEDx, so here we are. But thank you, Zero the Hero. Hope you're having a good Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, and thank you so much. All right, yes, you came out and everybody was like, "Oh my goodness,
What is this? You know, people leaned forward a little bit, right? That
I don't know. Did they know the title of the presentation on the schedule before you came out on stage? Because it kind of gives it away.
kind of level in the space.
What?
There's energy about it. Drag attracts attention.
Yeah, to you, it makes you the center of attention. You already kind of gave away the whole spiel with this, talking about your therapist. This is serving you. How is it serving a potential classroom?
And it's one of the ways that is an important part of teaching.
What?
And any good teacher will tell you that one of the biggest challenges in teaching is getting students engaged in the learning process.
In the learning process, yes. So that's why, as you said, as my teacher did, he dressed up as Teddy Roosevelt. He had the glasses, the mustache, the whole get up, the whole 9 yards, and he talked to the class in a Teddy Roosevelt voice, talking about Teddy Roosevelt, the historical figure. Yes, because it was on point to the material. Draw that connection for me. Because as far as I can tell, this whole idea has a very narrow use case.
Drag does that. Drag does that a lot.
How?
Drag evokes curiosity.
What?
And drag engages intellectual thirst. People.
No. I'm getting irritated now. How? Tell me how. How does coming out dressed in drag underline any educational circumstance that isn't specifically about drag? That's the only time where I could say, okay, you got me. If you're doing a lesson, a section in a class about drag culture, then coming out in drag would be on point and relevant. Good for you. You passed the test. Outside of that, what are you talking about?
People want to know what it's about.
No. They're not there to learn what drag is about. You're there to teach them. I'm going to repeat myself. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to repeat myself.
What's coming next? Those kinds of things. And that is a big part of this work.
No.
Number 2.
What?
Drag unbalances thinking.
Unbalances thinking? Well, I'll give you that. My mind is all cattywampus right now because of this.
Drag is unconventional.
Okay, granted.
It's transgressive.
Depending, I guess.
It rejects the gender binary and all of the power dynamics that are associated with it.
No, it actually enforces the gender binary because you're a man dressed up as an over-exaggerated woman. There's still a binary there. There's only two. There's what you are and what you are portraying. And there's only one option to portray the opposite of what you are. Therefore, binary. What? I should just have a stinger on here that's just me going, what are you talking about, to save myself the breath.
But there's more than 2 or only 2 ways to define gender.
No. You are a man dressed up as a woman. There's only 2 options.
And part of that process is learning new and different ways to examine cognitive dissonance.
Hey, you want to tell me about cognitive dissonance, and you're telling me that drag exemplifies a muddling of the gender binary? Holy cats.
When I walk into a classroom, I literally am a sissy boy who dispels any illusion of hypermasculinity.
I'll grant you that.
And when I end up teaching in drag, I also literally embody my experience of queerness.
Okay, and therein with that statement, again, lies the problem. You are talking about you. You're expressing you. You're not going into a classroom to exemplify the Pilgrims or something, or someone going through the Blitz in World War II, or Teddy Roosevelt, or whoever. You are there for you. You are there to express yourself. You are not there to teach a lesson to students about subject matter. You're there to satisfy your own ego and self-image. And that is the wall you are going to have to jump over, because so far you haven't given me anything else to work with.
Engaging in a bright rainbow of possibilities of in-betweens and outside ofs.
You are a man dressing up as an over-exaggerated female. There's only two options.
That are beyond the gender binary.
No, they are. Okay, I could go on and be a broken record, so I'll just save myself and just say, every time he brings up something I've already said, I'll just say broken record.
In the context of teaching.
Yes, in the context of teaching.
Cognitive dissonance is one of those things that this experience brings up for students.
So you say. And what is the educational advantage to conjuring cognitive dissonance in your students?
And cognitive dissonance is basically where ideas seemingly clash in some ways.
Or actually clash.
They don't always seem to go together.
Or do not go together.
And end up needing to be processed, discussed, explored, analyzed in order for people to understand and digest them a little bit.
Okay, I might be a little bit too much pepper-jacked right now, but I think our speaker is trying to... Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but that quote-unquote definition of cognitive dissonance essentially said, you need to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. Was that... Am I off base?
Great example might be 2 notes on a piano.
Oh, for a second there, I thought he was about to say 2 + 2 = 5. And if he had, I'd be done. I'd be like, nope, I'm done. That's too much for a Christmas day. 2 notes on the piano.
That don't necessarily go very well together, but you really have to listen to hear the beauty of the music.
Okay. For my own sanity and for the edification of my audience, here is the dictionary definition of cognitive dissonance. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. What is a cognitive dissonance example? You want to be healthy, but you don't exercise regularly or eat a nutritious diet. Excuse me. The pepper jack is definitely setting in. So I'm not quite sure what our speaker is talking about, except to say, you see something that doesn't make any sense, you just need to sit with it for a while until it makes sense. Am I getting that correctly?
Or concepts in a fairy tale that seem oddly paired. Something like, there was an old woman who lived in a shoe?
That's not cognitive dissonance.
Or beauty and the beast.
That's contrast. That's not cognitive This is one of those moments where I say something and I think for a second, am I actually not as smart as I think I am? Like he brings up these quote unquote examples, and my reflex reaction is to say what I said. That's not cognitive dissonance. That's not cognitive dissonance. That's contrast. That is, fantasy, whatever. Okay.
Right?
No. Okay. Right. Why are you asking the audience? If those are
Right?
If those are examples that fit the equation, why are you asking us?
The idea is that is a way of connecting cognitive dissonance to teaching in the classroom, because Dr. Bren, as a professor, is typically thought of as understanding, gentle, friendly. His drag persona is a bit more boisterous and outrageous.
Dear Christ in heaven, what the I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying here. My stamina, my mental stamina is being challenged on this one. I have half a mind, maybe even a cognitive dissonance mind, to stop early on this one, because I don't know that we're going to get anywhere. We still have 8 minutes left on this thing. Sorry, 7. Yeah, just about 8 minutes. Sorry.
Drag unbalances thinking.
No, it doesn't.
Number 3.
No, it doesn't.
Drag disarms defenses. Oh,
what?
And the experience of disarming often happens in ways that make students a bit unsettled.
Yeah. Watching a grown man dressing up as a pink cartoon character and trying to pass it off as educationally valuable is a bit disarming. I'll give you that. This might be one of the best examples of where TEDx can go, honestly. I don't know that I should downplay it too much. This is actually kind of the epitome of what TEDx can bring us.
Because of the process of unbalancing.
What?
And a good teacher attends to that level of unsettling.
Attends to the level of Okay, so you walk into a classroom dressed up in drag with the intention of unsettling your classroom just so you can settle them, causing a problem that only you can fix. Do I have that right?
Can be done through processing, discussion, individual check-ins with folks.
What?
I often do it through campy humor.
Yeah, I can imagine. Tell me again how this isn't all about you rather than educating your students.
In addition to some other variables, camp is defined as often the juxtaposition of queer stigma and queer pride.
What? Camp. What is the dictionary definition of camp? Let's see. No, it's talking about, how about campy? You have like campy. How about campy? I don't think that's the definition. In the style of camp, absurdly exaggerated, artificial, or affected in a usually humorous way. Okay, that can be used to describe drag, but the definition of camp doesn't require anything about queer pride.
Shoved together. And often it's really funny. And usually it's about poking humor at other folks.
Could you get to the point where you're funny? You've been on this stage for almost 11 minutes of the runtime, and nothing's been funny so far.
Now, in my classrooms, I usually just do it directed at myself.
I can't even imagine.
So, for example, I might say something like, well, y'all are going to be surprised about this, but I'm gay.
And this teaches your students about a particular period in history how?
Dr. Brand, what? Clutch the pearls. I'm shocked. And I say, oh my gosh, I know. I tried so hard to be straight, but I just couldn't get the fashion. Right? Something like that. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, ha ha ha.
That self-deprecating humor gives students much needed permission.
So again, this is all about you. You as the center of attention, not the subject matter, not the lesson at hand. You, your self-deprecation, your self-declaration, your self-flagellation of your ego and your identity.
Permission to have conversations about things that often they felt were taboo.
Or maybe absolutely irrelevant to what they're paying for their college lessons, maybe. You want them to talk about you. You want them to go to you as an example. You want them to ask you questions about you.
Or things that they couldn't talk about together. There's a co-creation of a learning environment in those moments.
No, there isn't.
Where students can talk about real issues in real time and space.
Okay, what is a real issue that you showing up to a classroom in drag brings up?
There's a sense of permission that allows students to discuss critical issues that matter to them.
No, the issues would not be discussed if you were not instigating them by making yourself the subject of conversation. Name an issue. Okay, tell you what. Name an issue that you walking into a classroom dressed like that brings up that is absolutely relevant to everybody in the classroom and is totally worth their tuition fees.
In a learning environment that is partly informed by learned knowledge, as opposed to just going out into the hallway or on social media and reverberating back and forth in echo chambers, like hearing the same thing that they all the time, right?
I don't even know what to say anymore. Let's see. Circling plays victim up on the board. Contradicts own pointer argument, giving a faulty definition for both cognitive dissonance and camp. I'm going to have to wait until the end to see if we never get some specific examples of how this is educational. Good golly.
Right, reinforcing their own perspectives. It engages critical thinking.
It engages about what?
Drag disarms defenses.
No,
Number 4.
It doesn't.
Drag connects people.
I don't even know anymore.
And as a result, people often end up feeling vulnerable.
What?
And guess what? Vulnerability isn't unique to drag queens.
Gee, thanks, Professor.
Vulnerability isn't unique to queer people.
Thanks again, Professor.
It's a human experience.
Oh, is it? Wow, this was totally worth the price of admission.
And in a world where diversity, much less drag, breeds discrimination and division.
Diversity breeds discrimination. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the diversity cult of the last several years, but either way, circling diversity, equity, and or inclusion on the board.
People long for connection. They long to support each other. They seek it out.
I don't find myself feeling connected to anybody on the basis of seeing someone in drag. It would wholly depend on the kind. If I'm going to a performance, right? and I'm going to a burlesque show, let's say, and I'm with my friends, and part of the show is someone in drag, and it's funny and it's entertaining, and I laugh along with my friends at it because it's ridiculous and whatever, it's comedic, then sure. In a way, I guess you could say I connected with my friends and the rest of the audience in sharing in the humor of the performance. Beyond that kind of context, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
And as part of that process, there is an ongoing sense of longing for that level of empathy and understanding with each other.
What kind of empathy are you? I'm going back to the basics of journalism. Who, what, where, why, and how. How does drag manifest empathy all by its lonesome?
Drag connects people.
You keep saying that. You haven't provided any evidence of it.
And I'll let you know how that shows up.
Oh, okay. I'm all ears.
In the classroom.
Yes.
But I want to look a little bit historically first. Yeah, and it's really important to look at the history of Black and brown queer ballroom culture in that regard.
Black and brown queer ballroom culture. Could you get any more niche?
Often in those communities, people would come together because of coping with oppression like racism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, things of that nature.
And this was back in the 1900s, right? Because the first time you brought this up, you talked about the 1900s. Was there a lot of transphobia in the 1900s?
And they would seek out each other to support each other.
Sure.
And often they would create families of choice known as drag houses.
Families of choice known as drag houses. Okay, now see, here's the thing. Again, if our speaker was giving a lesson on the history of drag, while in drag, that makes sense. But so far, our speaker has not specified that this getup is appropriate only for discussions on that subject. Instead, apparently, it is a panacea until I'm told otherwise.
And in those drag houses, consisting of all kinds of members.
Yeah, but mostly of a particular racial makeup, right?
They would teach each other drag art skills.
Drag art skills.
They would help support each other by opening doors to work at different venues. They would often end up also being mentored by what is called a drag mother or father. And often a drag mother would be an experienced professional who would work as a performer and would pass along their knowledge, their wisdom, and sometimes support, younger generations of drag queens, drag kings, and folks of all gender identities.
I'm going to circle argumentative non sequitur, because that has absolutely nothing to do with the examples given at the top of the presentation. But I'm also having a preemptive cringe, because what our speaker is describing are effectively sororities for drag performers as a preamble to talking about why drag should take place in a classroom. Preemptive cringe.
And it was an important part of that process. So how does this kind of longing for connection show up in the classroom?
Longing for that's not... Why did you describe drag houses as mini drag colleges in the lead up to describing drag's purpose in the classroom? Come on.
Well, the best way for me to demonstrate that is to tell you a story.
I love a good story.
So I teach a class here at Widener called Social Work Practice with Families.
Do you teach it in drag? Social work practice with families.
And in one of the sessions, it's specifically working with LGBTQIA plus families.
Okay, we are perhaps gradually coming around to a semi-decent point. But again, I then have to ask, how common is drag in the vast panoply of LGBTQIA plus and so on?
And in that particular session, I teach it in drag, and I invite my father to come in and for us to each share our own unique experience of what it was like for me to come out to him back in the day, many years ago.
Because your particular brand of expressing yourself is emblematic of the entirety of the LGBTQIA plus demographics. Okay.
And of course, me being me, the story is dramatic
I can believe it.
and emotional.
I can believe it.
And at one point in the story, I'm sobbing.
Because it's part of the act. Tell me about authenticity again.
And my father reaches over and he takes my head and he gently pulls it to his chest.
Wow, when you describe it in those terms, like it's almost scripted, it sounds very, very authentic.
And he strokes my hair.
Your hair or your plastic helmet?
And as his hot tears fall from his eyes
Uh-huh.
and hit the back of my neck, he whispers to me, Brent, I'm so sorry you had to go through this all by yourself. And in real time, I turn to him and I say, Dad, I'm so grateful. And we embrace.
Almost like it's scripted or something.
There's not a dry eye in the classroom.
And you wouldn't have it any other way.
Drag connects people.
No. That story would have conceivably the same effect on people if you were not in drag. If you're telling the story of personal struggle and coming to terms with it in yourself and as well with your family and your father showing you compassion for your struggles and everything else, it has absolutely nothing to do with the outfit. It could be a radio play and have the same emotional impact on anybody with some empathy, granted that the story is actually authentic and told authentically. But either way, it wasn't drag that did it. You're coming up with excuses to play dress up in public.
Number 5.
Oh, God.
Drag attracts and activates passion.
I thought attracts attention, but now it attracts passion.
Right?
Oh, sorry. Okay, you did it again.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
They don't call it a drama queen for no reason. The experience of what it's like to be a drag queen, it's big and bold and beautiful.
Eye of the beholder.
Right?
Oh, sorry. You did it again.
Right?
Why do you keep asking the audience?
And it empowers students to do what they do best.
You mean listen and learn?
Blow up barriers and build bridges.
That's what students do best? Holy cats, was I going to the wrong schools?
with new eyes.
New eyes. Eyes in the dark. Eyes in the dark. Why am I suddenly quoting a Star Trek episode that was one of the few where Deanna Troi was the main character?
I've seen students be empowered by drag and decide to create change in their personal lives.
Okay, how? Give me an example.
I've seen them engage in different career-making decisions.
Like what?
I've seen them decide to engage in a political process, like a protest march.
But because you dressed up in drag, their whole lives changed because you wow, golly gee whiz, you're quite the catalyst.
Or voter registration.
Oh yeah.
Or reaching out to elected officials.
Yeah, about
There
what?
is no stopping student movement when they are activated.
Yeah, except for clapping or someone saying something they don't like or a security guard.
History continues to show us that on and on and on.
Uh-huh.
And so, to conclude,
oh, thankfully,
I have a compassionate challenge for you.
Oh, I love challenges, especially the kind that give difficulty to my emotional state.
You don't have to be a drag queen. You don't even have to be a teacher. And you don't have to be queer. Nobody's perfect.
Uh-huh. I don't have to be any of those things. And
you too can embrace the boldness that is drag.
I could, but I have no interest in doing so. And I'm not less of a person, compassionately or otherwise, as a result. And you still have not made a case for drag in the classroom as an educational device. You've only underscored your personal ego stroking.
All you have to do is grab your pencils, grab your books, and your favorite makeup palette and slay the classroom. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Pepper Jack and this talk has melted my brain. All right, let's on to the bingo card, round 2. I'm going to go over one more time myself. If you have arguments for squares not yet circled in red, let me know in a moment. Marginalize, marginalization. I think that was implied during the course of things. Connect people, people aren't excluded, that kind of thing. Maybe I'm stretching slightly, but maybe you'll forgive me. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No, not in the least. Feminism. I can't say yes to that. I mean, we did talk about gender binary and such, but I'm not quite sure that feminism became a talking point. Privilege. Again, I have a hard time justifying that one off the top of my head. Weightless example. Yeah, the teachers at the beginning who used dressing up and role-playing as a teaching device for a subject, because ultimately that had absolutely nothing to do with the talk, and the case was never made. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Merry Christmas, Scribe in chat. Okay, I'm asking, what the hell is that I missed? You missed a very poor argument for drag in the classroom. That's as much as I can give you. That's all I got out of this. The promise was somehow drag was going to be brought up as a justification for a teaching tool, but it never was. It was all about showcasing the speaker's personal ego, idiosyncrasies, and yeah. Anyway, thank you, Chicago Mike. Again, it's very generous of you. Moving on. Let's see. Wait, this example. Yes, collectivize his own demographic. I would say that our speaker was talking in terms that seemed to imply that he represented a much larger group than he actually represents, which is only himself. So circling that one. Economic disparity. No, he never really brought up money or anything. No. Free space. Yes, free space is free. Circling free space. I got to double check myself because, oh, you know what happens? You know what just happened with free space? Oh my gosh, we got the downward diagonal. And with that.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
There we go. Our first bingo of this presentation. Let's keep going. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything that was a new buzzword or buzz phrase. The list of things that drag does is not a buzz phrase in and of itself, so I don't think so. Patriarchy. I mean, if I was being ridiculously generous, I could talk about, having a conversation with dad, but I don't think that quite meets the test of patriarchy. So, yeah. Anecdote that probably never happened. I can believe that he had teachers who used dress up and role play as teaching visual aids. I can believe that our speaker put on a presentation in front of his students showcasing his family's issues regarding him. I don't know that there's an anecdote in here. I don't believe. I think it's all true. White supremacy. Yes, because twice he focused on the black and brown ballroom culture of the 1900s. I don't see how that isn't at least peripherally some kind of element to white supremacy. So circling that one. On the bottom row, childhood or family anecdote. Yes, family anecdote we certainly had there with his father and the coming to terms, so on and so forth. So circling that one. Let me get that circled here. Systemic or institutional? I mean, teachers, school, classrooms, society. Yeah, I think there's enough there for that. I think that's probably safe. And by the way, I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. If you have an argument for a square that needs to be uncircled, if you think my justification is off in some way, I'm more than happy to entertain that as well. Leaves out vital context. Yes. How does any of this benefit your average classroom? I mean, again, he wasn't saying this should be used as a visual aid when talking about LGBTQ subjects. Now, he was being very general about it. And lastly on here, sales pitch for product or service. Well, if I had ever heard or never heard of a sales pitch for drag as a societal service, I don't know what else this would be. And because of that, if you can believe it.
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
There you go, our second bingo on this card. And now I am open to your arguments for squares to be circled. If you've already put it into the chat, please put it in again with a tag on with my name so I can see it. Sass the Gray, anecdote that never happened with his father. Now, see, here's the thing. I can believe he put on a presentation with his father. Whether or not that occurred in real life, that wasn't the story. He was talking about the presentation put in front of the classroom. I can believe that happened. I'd be... I don't know. I'm open to an argument otherwise, but I have a hard time thinking that given the opportunity, our speaker would not bring his father into the mix to showcase his own drama. Advocast Diaboli, his constant mention of previous eras downtrodden could also be seen as a reference to economic disparity, and he did talk about class differences. Oh, that's right. That's right. All right. You know what? Ia sold me. Unlike drag, I was sold on something in this talk. So Ia got me. All right. One more brick in the proverbial wall. Thank you, Advocatus. Michael Sander, new buzzword, teacher drag, family drag, work drag. It's, oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, you know what? I agree with that one as well. That's good. I hadn't, yeah, it's true. I hadn't heard of work drag before. And surprisingly enough, or maybe not, with that, across the middle, we have...
I had a dog, and his name was...
What?
I had a dog, and his name was...
Bingo!
Of course!
Another bingo. So good one there. Good one there, Michael Sander. Good one. All right. Any more arguments for squares to be circled? And just as a heads up, between this and the last of the TEDx talks for this presentation, I will have to take a brief break. The Pepperjack tells me I need to make a trip to the facilities. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? I'm not seeing any. So for the sake of me having to take a brief break, I will come back. And if anybody's put anything in the chat in the meantime, I will entertain that at the time. But for the moment, I'm going to put up the standby screen and also put on some background music while I take a brief hiatus. I'll be back in a moment, everyone. Hello, everyone. I am back once again. Thank you for your patience. Hope you smoked them if you got them, as they say. I'll take a look at the chat real quick, see if anybody else has any other arguments for squares to be circled. Perfect pitch. Merry Christmas. Scribe doing 2 streams at once. Well, doing 1 stream with 3 TEDx's is more like it. Though I suppose if you call the interlude there a breaking point, then I suppose now this is stream number 2 within number 1. Also, Sextus Megorian, guardian of old Phyrexia. Merry Christmas. Did I get that right? That was my first attempt. Did I get that right? Either way, let me know in the chat. Payar D. Bayar, Merry Christmas. Ken Lee, Merry Christmas. Daniel Fullman, no girl from Ipanema. I have a feeling it'd probably be copyrighted. So, and on the way, I got myself a second pepper jack because definitely this is a 2 pepper jack stream, if ever I saw one. Assassin of the Gray, sales pitch. Well, we already had sales pitch. But okay, metamorphosis with butterfly symbolism is grooming into LGBTQ AEIOU, never Y. This drag queen is pushing conversion therapy, an anecdote that never happened with father crying. Yeah, the father crying, I mean, the hot tears falling on my neck thing. Yeah, you know what? That was maybe, especially for something that sounded like a performance, maybe a bridge proverbially too far. And so.
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay!
Right?
So there we go. Another bingo. All right. What color shall I use for presentation number 3? I need something that's distinct. I don't need. How about a goldish color, like 5 golden rings, that kind of thing? I'll go for a golden color here. Let's see if I can make it a bit more gold. Yeah. Okay. Let's try that. All right. It's goldish. Goldish. Now, what are we doing for our third and final presentation of TEDXMAS? Why I had to at least go back to the home base, so to speak, at least once in the course of this. So the title of our last presentation is Diversity Conversations, Creating Psychological Safety. Are you guys ready to create a psychological safe space to have a conversation about diversity? I know I am. Let's see. Oh, wait a second. In the chat, real quick. Where'd it go? Absolutely correct. I got the whole thing correct on the first try. Sestus Megorian, guardian of old Phyrexia. I got it. See, I always try to challenge myself to names I don't recognize or things in the chat, and I usually stumble, and I appreciate being corrected. But wow, the first try, are you sure? All right. Well, thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you. Let's see. Did I already say Merry Christmas to Mr. E? Mr. E, Merry Christmas. Looks like I arrived a bit late. Well, you arrived just in time for the last of the 3 TEDx's. So in effect, you've arrived just in time for a full-on TEDXcellence after a fashion. So there you go. Adabisi, Merry Christmas to you. I think, didn't I see you in the Midnight's Edge chat when I was on there this morning? I think I did. But if I didn't, either way, Merry Christmas. Shadow Sonata, Merry Christmas to you. All right. So that's enough of a bathroom break interlude. Here we go, guys. Our last TEDx of the TEDXMAS celebration. Diversity Conversations, Creating Psychological Safety.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Well, right off the bat, we have our first bingo square. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, there we go. I realize the sound on this is a little off. I couldn't clean it up any better. I did try to boost it, so it's a little louder than it was. Why are the names on the thing blurred out? For those of you listening at home, there's a screen up. It has TEDx University of Manchester, and below it, I would assume the sponsors of the event, but all the names are blurred out.
A topic over the last few years has really flourished. We've had so many conversations. However, what's coming to light is that there's a huge fear of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, can you imagine why that might be? What's coming to light? Was this a talk given in 2014 or something? Roan Harushin, Merry Christmas to you. Coming to light. Where have you been?
A huge fear of not knowing which terminology to use, not knowing what to say.
You mean like the laws in Canada and such that have been passed in Scotland and so on, that if you use the wrong pronouns, you're going to be arrested or worse, that kind of thing?
And that fear is preventing us from truly driving change.
No. Your University of Manchester? Okay, let me take a step back. If our speaker is arguing against the criminalization of words and speech, as has been happening more and more in the UK, then I'm on board with this. If that's what he's saying. I don't know that that's what he's saying yet, but you want to talk about, because here's the thing. There's a justifiable fear from where our speaker is coming from in saying the wrong thing. Just ask Count Dankula.
From truly creating environments that have that psychological safety and that sense of inclusion. And that fear spans across the world. There's so many different elements that create that. There's different languages, different cultures.
Different laws, different statutes, right?
So how do we communicate in a way where we have that psychological safety?
The First Amendment. a rabid defense of free speech. That's how. Or at least that's one of the best ways you could.
To share ideas, to share different opinions.
Again, a free speech determined? Pepperjack, help me out. A free speech determined society. How's that?
And the beauty of diversity is that we don't all need to think the same.
What? Dude, what rebel moon have you been sleeping under for the last 10 years? DEI and diversity is entirely about same think. Are you kidding me?
We can think differently, but still respect each other's different opinions.
You could have fooled me. Have you been on Twitter?
I want to share with you an example.
Hey, an example? And we're only a minute in? It is Christmas. It's a Christmas miracle.
One of the questions I get asked very often is, where are you from?
Oh, for crying out loud. And?
So I usually say, West London.
There you go. That's all you have to say.
And then I get a follow-on question.
No, where are you really from?
Which is, no, where are you from?
Oh, I was close. Dang it. I almost had my psychic moment for the show.
And then I say, Uxbridge in West London. And then you get this standoff situation, a bit like a Western movie, where we're looking at each other, someone's waiting for who's going to make the next move. Now, the truth is, that's an uncomfortable situation. It creates conflict.
All right. Can I believe that someone has ever done that to him? Yes. Can I believe it happens really often? I don't know. Let's wait and see if he gives us any more anecdotes.
We want to get to a place where we can learn and grow, right? Where someone can share or ask a question without that fear.
Maybe they're asking about your heritage. Maybe you could at least concede that possibility instead of making it awkward. Like, I'm from Oxford, but my family comes from blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. You could do that, and it would explain things, you know. If somebody says, Scribe, where are you from? I'd say, I'm from America. No, but specifically, where are you from? Oh, I'm from my hometown in state in the West. Yeah, but where's your family from? Oh, well, it's a mixture of Scottish and German and Belgian and stuff. But I mean, my immediate family is sort of from Wisconsin and the South-ish, because my mother was a army brat and kept moving around with my grandfather. You know, instead of being obstinate about what they're asking, you could just sort of humor them for the sake of understanding. I don't know. Is it really that much of a burden to say, I'm from Oxford, but my family comes from wherever?
So that learning is critical to creating that psychological safe space.
Then just humor the person. Why do you have to? Okay.
Well, what do I do? Right? I'm human.
Yeah.
I want to ask the same questions.
Okay.
I'm inquisitive about different cultures.
So then have the empathy for the person asking you and give a complete answer so you cover all the bases. What is the burden to you?
Different people, different backgrounds. What I tend to do is create psychological safety for myself.
Create psychological safety for yourself. Okay, what psychological trauma is induced by somebody asking you where you're from in the first place?
I go into that same question. And what I usually say is, I'm really intrigued to learn a bit more about your background, about your heritage.
See, now, and admittedly, that is a clearer version of the question that they're effectively asking.
Not sure what the right way of asking is.
That is the right way to ask. You make it plain. You don't dance around it.
But I'm going to ask how I know. And if I get it wrong, please do correct me.
Oh, I see. He was doing it hypothetically. I'm going to do what I know and tell me, correct me? What?
Because I'm on a learning journey.
A learning.
And that's it. That's psychological safety, right? If I get corrected, I don't feel that conflict situation. I'm happy to correct myself. And it actually creates comfort for the other individual to be able to correct me.
I guess. Maybe it's the pepper jack. I think I need a more clear example of an exchange that works on this theory.
But one of the things that we must measure in these conversations is intent and impact.
Yes. So if somebody asks you where you're from and you divine that they mean something a bit more broad-based than simply you, the individual, you could assess their intent as curiosity and not as accusatory, and just give them an all-around answer, right?
Now, I see the world from a very positive light. I think people have good intent, and sometimes, even though the intent's good, the impact of their words is negative.
Oh, we got microaggressions, unconscious bias. I think that might be the, no, it's only the second one on here. Okay, microaggressions, unconscious bias. Even if he doesn't use the term, that is what he's describing here. An absence of an intent, but still a negative outcome of comment.
Those are occasions when we can actually learn and grow. When someone's intent is positive, but the impact might be negative.
As according to you and how you decide to interpret it.
And there's examples of that.
Okay.
In a group meeting, when we're having a discussion, when someone says something with good intent, but it might land in a negative way because it's not placed in using the right language, or it might not be culturally coming across in the right way.
Okay, so how do you set up a situation of psychological safety for the person who had absolutely no intent to quote unquote offend, but you've decided to interpret it in a negative way?
Can learn and grow. And of course, there is occasions when someone's intent is negative and the impact of their words is negative.
Explain to me the scenario where someone says something that has the absence of intent and you make an effort to create psychological safety for them out of the interpretation you've decided to accept in the absence of intent.
And in those occasions, we must correct. We must actually address it there and there.
Okay, how? How do you address it? How do you correct it? And how do you, I mean, I guess it depends on the context. Sometimes you can tell when somebody's trying to insult you. It's pretty obvious. But okay, if someone's trying to insult you, you have to correct them. If someone's not trying to insult you, how do you go about correcting them? Give me an example of that.
And that's where this concept of calling in versus calling out comes up.
What?
Now, you've all heard of people being called out for saying the wrong thing, for getting it wrong.
Uh-huh. And how does the mechanism of calling in not effectively do the same thing?
And that's right. There are occasions when we must call people out.
Give me an example. I'm sure there are some. I'm sure you have some in your back pocket. Give me an example.
When someone says something that's racist, sexist, homophobic.
You mean intentionally or by interpretation?
Or any other form of discrimination, where it has an immediate impact on a person, on a group. There's harm that's directly targeted at someone.
If someone says something, the only harm that is incurred is what you decide to accept from it. Offense is taken, never given. You could just shrug it off and ignore the person or ostracize them socially, and it never has to bother you at all.
At that occasion, we must call out that behavior.
Oh, okay.
We must stand up and be those active allies.
Active allies.
Actively standing up for what is right. But many occasions, we could call people in. When people say something without ill intent.
Yeah, you're assuming without ill intent, you're assuming ill intent otherwise. Circling mind reading assumes motives. I mean, I know you didn't mean to make me feel bad, but you made me feel bad.
When they're trying to ask something and you know their intent might not be negative, that's an opportunity to actually call someone in.
So you're going to take an instance where someone says something that has absolutely no ulterior motive to it, but you're going to transmogrify it into a situation where you can be the one in the moral authority position to educate the person on why what they said was wrong. And by this, you're going to create psychological safety for who or whom, if I'm actually using my English major.
But what does calling in actually mean?
I'm dying to know.
Or entail? Well, that's where you pull the person aside.
You pull the person aside. Oh, so you single this person out for a private conversation.
And take it as an opportunity to educate them.
Right, educate them, because the thing that they said, which had no ulterior motive or ill intent, you've decided to take as something offensive or problematic. And so you're going to tell them how they should think to make you feel better. Is that about right?
To give them that learning opportunity to understand that actually the term you used is not the relevant one anymore.
Oh, the term I use is not the relevant one anymore. But you understood what I was saying, correct? Holy cats, Alan Thyler, again. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say other than thank you so much and Merry Christmas for the, again, Samurai #1 Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wow-wee! Wow! Wow!
That's a drunken uncle Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan, again. You're so very generous. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Christmas. Hope you're enjoying the show for what we have here. You know, I got to say, this is kind of, I'm having sort of like overall sentimental retrospective flashbacks because this talk contains a whole lot of things that I've covered in bits and pieces over the years. I feel very much at home listening to our speaker. Probably much to the deficit of his argument, but I leave it to you, dear audience, to assess me on that one.
Or the way you said that, it might have had a negative impact.
Might have had a negative impact. Thank you for doing me this service of taking me aside to correct me on what you think someone else might think about a thing I said which I didn't think or have any intent to come across as offensive.
Try this next time. Why is that important? Why is it important to call someone in?
Because it makes you feel morally superior, and it denigrates another person, and they don't have anywhere to go because you're presenting yourself as a subject matter expert, and you're, I'm assuming, leveraging your demographic to act as an expert on this thing to correct the wrong thinking person.
Well, if you call someone out, 99.9% of the time, they still hold those views, but will just never express them again.
So you wait. If you call someone out, they will hold those views but never express them again. And what's wrong with that? I mean, if they think in their mind, if they are hating in their hearts a particular demographic or person throughout their entire life, but they just never talk about it. And so calling someone in, you think you're going to, what, better this person? The person who said something without intent, you're going to fix them.
And that's dangerous because we want people to learn. We want people to have a different perspective.
You mean your perspective? I mean, don't get me wrong. If somebody's being patently racist, sexist, whatever else about something, denigrating somebody else, insulting somebody else, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to have them around either. But at that point, who cares? They can have all the evil thoughts that they want, and they can say all the evil things they want to say, and I just can choose not to have anything to do with them. I don't have to stand as a moral authority over them. I can choose to spend my energy somewhere else. But for someone who says something that I can deduce was without intent, what exactly is the purpose there?
We want them to adjust the way they converse or the things they think. And that's why calling in is so important.
I thought DEI wasn't about making everybody think the same way.
Now, on many occasions, you could be on the receiving end of being called out or called in. What do you do then? Well, the first thing is...
Now, what should I do if I'm either a blatant racist or someone who has accused me of being racist when I'm not? Yeah. Kind of a bit of an extreme difference between those 2 points in time.
We as humans, the moment someone challenges us, our immediate response is defensiveness.
Possibly so. And if I had no intent, would that not be a legitimate response?
We become defensive. We try to justify what we've said. The truth is, if someone does call you out or call you in, you must take that as a learning opportunity.
No. They have to justify their opposition. Just because somebody starts criticizing me does not mean that they are right. They have to justify themselves, especially in the calling in situation where you take me aside. You kind of take my elbow and guide me off to the other side of the room and say, hey, just so you know, that thing you said about the Hunt for Red October, that hurt me to my deepest core. Okay. All right. Alec Baldwin is the better Jack Ryan actor. Harrison Ford, I'm sorry, he's Indiana Jones. He's Han Solo. He doesn't come across as somebody who is an analyst who is put into a situation he's not prepared for. So you saying that Harrison Ford should have been in Hunt for Red October, that offends me to my core. Now, that's a bad example because I'm absolutely right in that assessment. But you see what I'm saying. You see, it's stupid. It's pompous. It's presumptuous. It's overbearing. I'm being a jerk. Right? I can't just let that fall off my back. I don't need to have my ego fixed by somebody else agreeing that Alec Baldwin was the best actor for Jack Ryan in The Hunt for Red October at that time. Right? I can just be assured in my righteousness, and I don't need someone else to have to correct themselves to make me feel better about it. Because I know I'm right. So why do a take aside? Why do a call in? That entire tirade was entirely fueled, by Pepperjack. So take it as seriously as you want.
With an open mind to be able to listen to them, to be able to understand what they're saying. And that brings me really to the point around psychological safety.
Okay.
Now, psychological safety is fundamental to any organization, any group of friends, any societal conversation.
The world is not safe. Your psychology is only as safe as you decide to make it. And if you hand over your psychological safety to someone else who says something that you don't agree with, you are giving them power. You ever heard the term, don't feed the trolls? Learn to shrug it off.
You must have psychological safety. If you're truly going to advance your learning, your understanding, and create a safe space.
I was wondering when we get to safe space, I was wondering if you ever use the phrase, boy, safe space. Remember the glory days of safe space, 2014 through about 2016 or thereabouts? Everybody was crazy about creating safe spaces, safe spaces, safe spaces. We don't hear enough about safe spaces anymore. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back with the what was it that they had? There was some event, some college event where they created a room full of like bean bags and toys and things because someone was giving a speech that was political in nature and possibly, I think, right-wing in nature. And they created this little safe space room where people could like relax and decompress with, again, like bean bags and toys and games and things. So their fragile little psychoses wouldn't be damaged by someone saying something in another room that they might disagree with politically or socially. Oh, those were the days.
A space where people can bring their authentic self.
No. They can't bring their authentic self because you are suddenly the arbiter of whether or not what they have to say or think is correct. And if they don't say the thing that you think is correct, you're going to take them aside and re-educate them. How attractive of a space is that?
Not where they have to adapt, but where they have a sense of belonging.
Now, I don't have to adapt to your tender ministrations of your own psychology. No. I'm just going to be called in for a re-education. Come on.
You have to create psychological safety. But how do you do it?
I don't know. How do you do it?
And I'm going to share with you some examples
of
things I've seen over the years that create psychological safety.
I do appreciate active examples, and you might be the first one of our talks to actually provide reasonable and poignant ones.
This is not the ultimate list, but it's a starting point.
Okay, well, you know what? It's not an ultimate list, but it is a list, so I'm circling list on the bingo card. Keep going.
Things that each and every one of us can do to create that psychological safety.
Okay.
The first is, before we go into conversations, how do we set the expectations?
How do we set the expectations before we go into a conversation? How do we set the expectations? Okay.
How do we set the expectations around what we're discussing? What we're planning, the foundations of what we're going to learn, or what we're going to converse.
I'm guessing we're not having like a casual conversation if it has to be this manufactured.
That is so important. Because usually we go into a conversation without doing any of that.
Yeah, like, hey, where are you from?
Whether it's in a work setting or in a personal setting.
Uh-huh.
And unless the individual knows you really well, it can go wrong. Because
so how do you set the expectations for a casual conversation with someone you're not that familiar with? I do tell.
We interpret things in different ways.
Yes.
So setting those expectations is fundamental.
But you know that your interpretation is the correct one because if someone says something that sets off your psychological safety radar, you know that you need to correct them. Right? And I'll follow through with my own,
right?
My own rule on that one.
The second is about being open.
No. How do you prepare? How do you set the rules, the boundaries of the conversation? You have to give us you're listing off things, you need to give us an example for each thing. Like when you say we need to set the boundaries of the conversation before we even begin. So, for example, if I were to talk to Joe about his origins, I would XYZ whatever. Just giving us a list is not educating us on your process.
And explaining your why.
Explaining
we give a point of view. You share an idea. Do you ever think about what the why behind it is? What is your why for sharing that?
All the time. I try to explain my motivations all the time on things. It's maybe neurotic of me. I don't know.
And that why is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because we must explain our why. It gives people context into our thinking, into why we believe in what we're saying.
Give us an example.
So sharing a why is fundamental. The third piece.
Yes, the third. You got me off there for a second because that was supposed to be the second. Now it's the third, yeah.
Is about understanding how do you give everyone a voice, especially in group settings.
How do you give everyone a voice? Okay, everybody takes a turn. I do a conference call with my company every week where we have basically a seating chart. Well, we used to have a seating chart, but now we have, we're doing it online and everything. But anyway, we have an order that people go into, and each person says their piece for what they've been up to for the last week, what projects they're working on, what they're still working on, what they've completed, and so on. Everybody takes a turn. It's very simple.
We've all been in group activities, meetings with a group of friends, and there's that one person who's always got the last word, who's always sharing what they think.
Then set an order and stick by it and make it an arbitrary list.
But how do we create a level playing field?
How do you create a level playing field? I mean, are we talking about a formal meeting or an informal thing? Maybe something has nothing to say. Right? Like earlier today, and this isn't a dig on anybody, this is just the reality of the situation. I ended up, I'm very flattered to be so. I ended up invited to the 500th episode of Midnight's Edge in the morning amongst a august body of individuals, as far as I'm concerned. And I got on there and I said a couple of things because I was kind of starstruck for a moment. And then for a long part of it, I was quiet because they were talking about things that I didn't have anything to say about. They were reminiscing over the history of the show and how many episodes they had and everything else. And I was a visitor. I was a guest. I didn't have anything to offer. I didn't have any memories to share. This is the first time I'd been on there, as far as I can recall. And so, politely, I just stayed aside because I didn't, and I didn't feel offended by it. I didn't feel left out. It was just the circumstance of the thing. Sometimes being quiet doesn't mean someone feels like they're on the outs. It might just mean they have nothing to offer.
How do we create an environment where even the quiet people can speak up, where everyone feels they have that equity?
You make it mandatory that everybody say something. I mean, this only works in sort of a formal setting of a workplace where everybody's got to give their weekly report or whatever it is, or their daily check-in or whatever it is. Otherwise, if someone wants to be quiet, respect their quiet. Don't goad them into it. If they're a perpetual wallflower and you make attempts to make them included and everything else, fine. If they're not comfortable with it, then leave them alone. What about their psychological safety? Maybe they're an introvert. You ever imagine that?
And that is fundamental to learning and growth. If we're truly going to experience different ideas, different perspectives, we must create a learning environment, a psychologically safe environment where every single person feels they can contribute.
Except you don't want to create that environment because if somebody says something that you decide is incorrect, you're going to take them aside and re-educate them into your way of thinking. You're not open to alternate perspectives or different ideas. You've already told us you want to homogenize the environment to make you psychologically safe.
where we can turn around and ask everyone to share their views, not just one person.
Oh, until they say something you don't like, and then you're going to take them aside and correct them.
And that requires us to put a bit of effort, going around the room, asking that one person who might not have said anything, do you have anything to add?
And then they say something that you have to call them in for. Let's see. Going back to the card, because I keep forgetting here. Self-vilification. No. Contradicts own point or argument. Yeah, because he wants everybody to speak as long as they say things he likes. Let's see. Privilege. Benevolent condescension. Yeah. Everybody here has the opportunity to speak. I'm leaning on this, but it's such a fundamental contradiction. It is a cognitive dissonance in what he's saying versus what he supposedly is going to do to somebody if they speak out of turn. Plays victim. Yeah. Anytime you say someone unintentionally said something that upset me, you're choosing to be offended, choosing to be a victim. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Otherwise, I'll just be going over the card the entire time. We can save arguments for the end.
It's the small steps, the simple things that we do that create opportunities for learning and growth.
Opportunities. I love the word opportunities. It's like, oh yeah, someone said something I don't like. That creates an opportunity for me to show off my righteous indignation.
The other key point is around active listening.
Uh-huh.
When I was a young boy,
yes,
my parents taught me one thing.
Only one thing? That's unfortunate.
You've got one mouth and 2 ears. Go into life talking and listening in that proportion.
Well, I mean, you know, as a reflection of that notion, I do my best on TEDx's. I'm actively listening to what you're saying. And I occasionally do have to use my mouth to pause the video and speak for the sake of YouTube's, you know, almost tyrannical algorithm.
And I think it's still relevant. Talk less, listen more. How do we do that? How do we actively talk less, listen more?
I don't know. Maybe accept the fact that somebody unintentionally said something that you decided was, you know, offensive, and then keep your mouth shut, because otherwise you're going to make things more awkward by taking them aside and re-educating them. I know I keep harping on this point, but it's really fundamental to this entire presentation as a contradiction. It really is just, it really annoys me.
And the active listening piece, when someone gives you an idea, that's different. How do we ensure that we value that idea?
By calling them in or calling them out?
Acknowledge it, because it's taken them courage to speak up and give you a perspective.
Yeah, perspective. Yeah, broken record, sorry.
So we must create that psychological safety where we understand the idea, we acknowledge it, and then we explore it and give feedback.
Feedback, right. Corrective action.
That's so important. And then the final piece is really truly about diverse, equitable, and inclusive environments.
Oh, well, if I hadn't already circled DEI, there we go. Okay, what constitutes a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment by your estimation?
If we're going to truly drive change in this space,
yes,
we must create a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, you just restated the same thing twice. Okay.
It is a fundamental fact that environments that are more diverse, equitable, inclusive, and where people have a sense of belonging are much better to work in, to live in, but more importantly, you get better innovation.
Yeah, I've heard this for years now. I've rarely had anybody put in front of me any evidence of this. Also, if you're going to include belonging into your structure, it has to be diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion. I'm still waiting for Debbie to be the grand acronym. Yeah, we get more innovation, we get more success, we get more wealth, we get more positive outcomes. What?
Creativity.
Creativity. I forgot that one.
Better problem solving. If we all thought the same, if we adapt to group thinking, how are any new ideas ever going to be born?
You're the one advocating for corrective action when someone says something you have interpreted as incorrect or off color. Good golly.
So we must create environments where people belong. And that's the critical piece around psychological safety.
Okay, you've said the same thing 4 times now. How do you do it? How do you create a space, a culture that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive? Just saying we need to, saying that it does good things is not a how. It might be a why, but it's not a how.
I want to acknowledge that conversations in the diversity space are uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it often involves accusing somebody of either being actively or passively or unconsciously racist, sexist, homophobic, and so on. And that is DEI's bread and butter, right?
They're uncomfortable for everyone.
Are they uncomfortable for everyone? Are they uncomfortable for you when you're standing in judgment over someone who said something that you determined was wrong and offensive?
Especially when you're trying to learn about something that's different.
Right.
But the truth is, we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Oh boy, have I heard that a million times in the last 7 years.
Why? Comfortable experiences don't last for a lifetime.
Really? Comfortable experiences don't last for a lifetime. I suppose, yeah, psychological scars do tend to irk someone probably longer than the good stuff. I'll give you that. So, yeah, the strategy here is to damage someone to the point where they never forget it.
Uncomfortable experiences do. If I asked any of you to think about a good, comfortable experience, how far back can you go?
How far back can I go? I can go back to my childhood.
A day?
I could go back a day. For Christmas, one of my friends for Christmas got me, I tell you, didn't really see this coming. It's a Sherpa comforter. Okay, it is this insulated, fuzzy, super warm comforter. And I've used it the last couple nights. I got to open my present early with permission. And I tell you, the last 2 nights, I have been toasty as a piece of toast. It's so, I don't want to get out of bed. It's so warm. I'm so comfy. Oh, I'm so warm. I'm so comfy. Oh, I was so comfortable. That was a comfortable experience. So yeah, last night, or I can remember standing next to my mother in our old rocking chair at our old house with my sister, newly born, in her lap, rocking her, and me standing next to and looking at my little sister, my baby little sister, and being absolutely at peace. So I can go yesterday all the way back to when I was like 2. So what does that tell you?
A week?
40 years. How's about that? 42 years. Or yesterday.
A month? Maybe a year. But if I asked you to reflect on an uncomfortable experience, I promise you could go back to your childhood.
Dude, I can go back to 5 minutes ago when you were getting all on your high horse over correcting people over their language while at the same time arguing for inclusion and diversity of thought. I can go back to an hour ago when I was having to wade through the morass of drag in the classroom. Yeah, uncomfortable experiences, they stick with you. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to forget this talk a lot quicker than I'm going to forget my comforter or watching my sister be rocked by my mother. It's not, you know what? You know how much damage it's going to do me? As much as I allow it to. That's the thing. You want psychological safety? Why don't you advocate for psychological resilience? That might be a better avenue. I'm just saying.
And that's the power of those experiences. The learning we derive from an uncomfortable experience lives with us for a lifetime. And that's where we need to get to.
So, how sadistic a mindset. I don't have any other way to interpret it. Our speaker wants to inflict such psychological trauma on people that they never forget him. They never forget the lessons he has to dole out. That might be, summed up, one of the most insidious and vindictive things I've ever heard in a TEDx. I'm sure I've heard similar theories before. I don't know that I've ever had it laid out to me that explicitly, right? In that contrast of example, good things in your life versus bad things. You remember the bad things, right? Well, that's what we want to do. We want to damage somebody so much with our belief system that they never forget us. That is some insidious stuff right there. That is sinister. I'll open up my mental thesaurus. The pistachios and walnuts. Thesaurus. That's what I meant.
We need to get to a place where we're learning and we're continuously learning.
Yeah, learning apparently is being beaten. Psychologically whipped until you learn.
And I just want to end by saying this is a journey.
Oh.
No one's perfect, but we must create that psychological safety, that environment where we can share ideas, where innovation thrives, where creativity thrives.
Yeah, through same think and public humiliation and psychological torture. Yeah.
And that's only done if we value our differences.
Oh, yeah.
If we understand that we're all bringing a different perspective.
Until our different perspective makes me feel uncomfortable and then I have to correct somebody.
Because that's how true and new ideas are born.
No.
Thank you.
No. You have not described an environment where new ideas are born. You've described an environment of oppression. You've described an environment of isolationism. You've described an environment of psychological conditioning. Anyway. I don't think I need to expand on that any further. Oh boy, I'm getting ready to be done because Pepperjack, boy, you my only friend. All right, let's go over the card one more time, and then we will wrap this up because my inebriation is taking over my articulation. Marginalization. Yes, the person sitting at the back of the class, the back of the office, the back of the conversation, and so on, who needs a boost, a psychological, what do you want to call it? Adrenaline shot. Self-vilification or wretchedness. At no point did I hear anything in this where he was denigrating himself or saying he was part of the problem. Contradicts own point or argument. Circled that one already. Feminism. No, he never brought up gender. Straight out of 3 different talks, and especially one involving drag, I'm kind of surprised that the gender wars weren't brought up. I mean, non-binary, etc., but that isn't feminism per se. So yeah. Let's see next. Privilege. I don't know that privilege fits here. I might be able to see an argument, but maybe not. Weightless example. Okay, reach back in time here. Reach back in time. Weightless example. It might be the Pepperjack. I'm kind of blanking right now. I'm pretty sure there was something in there that didn't quite line up. Of course, the examples, that's the problem. He never really gave like an example. He just like teased examples. Collectivize his own demographic. No, he kind of avoided that. He talked in relatively general terms, as far as I recall. Economic disparity. I don't recall that he did. And again, I apologize, guys. I am on my second Pepperjack and 3 TEDx's deep. So if I'm missing something, if I've messed something up, I'm happy to be corrected. Argumentative non sequitur. I know there's got to be something in here. Oh, man. I'm going to have to lean on you guys. Free space. Definitely have to circle free space because it is the best price. Circling that one. Has that given us any bingos yet? I'm having to check. No, not yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. As much as I lambasted, I have heard calling in and calling out before. That's not new stuff. He didn't make that up. I don't think so. A list we already covered. Mind reading, yeah. Patriarchy. Again, he never really talked about battle of the sexes or superior men in a situation or too many men in the room or something like that. Thank you, Keeverdam, so much. 3 TEDx's, 2 Pepper Jacks, and a partridge in a pear tree. And so far, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 golden rings. Maybe more. We'll find out. Thank you, Keeverdam, so much. Very generous of you. Merry Christmas again. All right, moving onward. Anecdote that probably never happened. Did he give us any anecdote? Okay. Can I believe that someone at some point in his life asked him, where are you from? And then modified it by saying, where are you really, really from? I can believe that happened. Can I believe it happens all the time? No. That part, I can't. I can't believe happens all the time. White supremacy. See, he rode around the periphery of getting specific about what diversity was supposed to mean in different contexts. So I don't know if white supremacy actually applies here. I mean, DEI, yeah, he said things like, those voices that are never heard, or I might need some backup on this. Childhood or family anecdote. Did he ever bring up his... I don't know that he ever did. I don't think he did. I mean, even in the whole where are you from deal, I don't think he did. Systemic or institutional? I'm blanking. Leaves out vital context. Yes, active examples of what the heck he was talking about or how you would create a diverse, psychologically safe space. The whole point of this, I thought, was to educate the audience on how to do this, but he never did. Sales pitch for product or service. He never brought up a specific product or organization or a book. I can't really, Word salad, most definitely. Especially when he repeated the same thing 4 times about how important it is to create a diverse space and everything else, but never answered the why or the how, And as a result of that...
Bingo.
What? Bingo! Yeah!
Of course! Of course!
We got our first bingo for this one. All right. I know that my drunken stupor has probably left a lot of squares on the table. So if you have arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. Be sure to tag me in your comments. If you've already put it up earlier in the chat, I might have missed it, so please just repost it. Let's see. Advocatus Diaboli. With the sheer number of contradictions this guy made, word salad is almost a given on this one in my mind. I agree with you completely, and thus it was already circled. Q continuing. Psychological safety for buzzword. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. For as often as he... it might not be a new phrase, but he was definitely trying to drill it into people's minds amongst right think, I'm sure. So, yeah, all right. I'll give it to you. Not a bingo square, but it adds to it. You never know. We might get there. Thank you for that, Q Continuum. Assassin of the Gray. If I wanted an invading foreigner to tell me how to behave in my own country, I would hire a Scotsman. Oh, geez. Assassin of the Gray, I have a distinct impression that you might be a little xenophobic. Let's see. Who else? I'll scroll up a bit, see if I missed anything. Rand American, which had the worst effect, the Pepperjack or the TEDx's? Well, I mean, it's kind of a combination. It's kind of compounded upon one another. After 2 Pepperjacks, trying to remember all the bits and pieces of the presentations as all over the place and nonsensical as they have been, yeah, it's kind of an exponential damage it does to my brain. John Gamesman, Merry Christmas first and foremost. And then I have a friend and colleague that has been so re-educated. He texted me Happy Holidays. This friend knows I celebrate Christmas, and he also celebrates Christmas. Yeah, there is that. I use Happy Holidays when I'm like sending out an email to multiple recipients, right? Like I in the course of my work, I have to send out emails every day that goes out to a whole bunch of people, most of whom I've never directly communicated with before. It's just a notification thing. And for the sake of the one I sent on last Friday, I just said Happy Holidays because I don't know. I don't know who celebrates what or in what way, shape, or form. So it's sort of a generic well wish and so on. But elsewise, yeah, if I know somebody celebrates Christmas, I say Merry Christmas. And if I make a mistake, whether it's in my knowledge or not, if I just reflexively say Merry Christmas to someone who's Jewish, I just assume they'll take the sentiment as it was intended and not take offense. And if they do, that's their problem, right? It's not meant to eliminate somebody else's belief system or whatever else. But anyway. Keeverdam, Scribe ain't slurring words yet. Are you? Okay, well, you have a much higher estimation of my verbal enunciation than I do, because I've been bumbling over a whole bunch of stuff the last little while. So there we go. Advocates, he didn't hit a ton of squares. All he did was repeat 2 points endlessly. That might be the problem with this one. It was a relatively standard length TEDx, but content wise, there wasn't a whole lot there, right? As deep as a puddle and as wide as your average TEDx. There you go. Mr. E, a proposal. Take the patriarchy and feminism square and merge them into social justice nonsense. Oh, but see, that's far, far too broad an umbrella. Far too broad an umbrella, unfortunately. These are 2 distinct concepts that can be brought up. Yeah, social justice nonsense. I mean, I might as well make the entire card one square that says social justice nonsense. Because that was really the origins of the bingo card, was trying to assess all these TEDx's for, the most common elements of argument in the modern day, in the current year. So I appreciate the suggestion, but I think I might just be making it too easy at that point. Exhumed Legume, Merry Christmas. Happy Holidays isn't a big deal in my country because it's used to cover the entire Christmas season from Eve to Epiphany. Well, there you go. See? Again, offenses taken, never given. Holy cow, perfect pitch. Thank you so much for the 40 euros towards another bottle of Jack and to keep us entertained. Cheers, Scribe. Well, thank you, Pitch. I appreciate it very much. Merry Christmas to you. That's very generous. Thank you. And I think with that generosity, and honestly, I don't think any other squares to be circled. There we are. We had 2 WTFs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bingos, I think. Unless my eyes deceive me, and I'm happy to be corrected. But there you go. That is TEDXMAS, everybody. The spirit of giving aneurysms, or at least intellectual migraines, I suppose. That's not really my intent. Unlike our last speaker, I'm not that much of a sadist, at least not publicly. So if you did experience any pain in this, well, we experienced it together. It was a shared lived experience, and we are thus connected in such a way as drag can never accomplish. Chicago Mike, thank you so much for the good job, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
That is a ranting monkey, Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Chicago Mike. Speaking of different things that I didn't think I mentioned, but maybe I did, I have a Discord server. If you'd like to join the Discord server, a Discord link is now in the chat. You just have to click on that, and you'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. And the secret word tells me and my moderators that you actually watch the stream. And today's secret word is radical inclusion. That's right, radical inclusion. That was said early on, so give me some of that radical inclusion. Just say, hello, radical inclusion, and you'll become a member of the Discord server. A couple of programming notes. Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, per usual, will be the next installment of the official TEDXcellence. I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk. And then Friday, for those of you that don't know, last Friday was supposed to be the 8th episode of Living on Borrowed Crime, where I talked to true crime content creators. Misery Machine was to be my guest, but one of the two people who make up Misery Machine, Drewby, had to go in for emergency gallbladder surgery. And I swear this is not one of those, oh, I had to wash my hair things. No, he had to go to the OR. There are pictures of this. It's crazy. So, as far as an excuse for having to dodge an interview, makes perfect sense to me. But this coming Friday, and I will set it up soon for everybody to know, this coming Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, will be the second attempt at an interview with the Misery Machine, featuring Yergi and Drewby from, well, the Misery Machine. So keep an eye out for that. I'll have links up to that both on Twitter and in the Discord as soon as I get it set up. So get ready for that ahead of time. Otherwise, everyone, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for this TEDXMAS. I hope you found it entertaining. And if you found it entertaining, well, I'm very glad, and Merry Christmas to you all. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved, especially at this Yuletide season that you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to Doctors Without Borders, link is at the top of the chat box. Thank you guys so much for your generosity, especially at this time of year, and all things considered. I very much appreciate it. I will do my best to pay it forward as I am able. And otherwise, everyone, I don't know what to say, but this has been a fun little distraction after a very stressful day for me. I hope everybody had a good time here. Please share this around. Leave a like on the like button thing, dealy, if you can. If you're watching this in the future, I'd love to know what you thought about these talks in the comments below, or even if you watched it live, let me know. But otherwise, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Monday, the rest of your Christmas, the rest of your day off if you have it, and the rest of your week ahead of you up until the new year. And I hope you all have a good and happy new year if I don't talk to you before then. And I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.